All right. Good evening. Let me call to order this meeting of the City of Bloomington Plan Commission for October 7th, 2024. I'll start with just a quick overview of our agenda for the evening. We will have just some standard housekeeping items to begin, and then we'll get to our petitions. Two petitions that have been tabled, continue to be tabled, are Cutters Kirkwood 123 LLC, that's SP 24-22, and some amendments, text amendments to sign standards, that's ZO 34-23. So neither of those will be heard this evening. We do have 4 petitions that are to be heard this evening. The first is DP 27-24. That is the property at 1030 West Acuff Road, petitioner Bill Evans. We will then go on to ZO-30-24, which is zoning amendments throughout Title 20 of the UDO that have been returned to us from the City Council. And we will then move on to MP 38-24. Again, City of Bloomington, the petitioner there. This is a request for an amendment to the transportation plan to incorporate safe streets and roads for all. And finally, we will hear SP 41-24. This petitioner here is Clear Path Services. This is a major site plan for review for a 5-story mixed-use building. So that's what we have on the agenda this evening. Let's start by calling the roll.
Here. Seaboard.
Here.
Cochran.
Here.
Kinsey.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Stossberg.
Here.
Whistler.
Here. All right, so we do have a quorum. We shall proceed. The first item we need to deal with is minutes. We have, I believe, 2 sets of minutes to be approved, minutes from the August 12th meeting and the September 9th meeting.
No, I'm so sorry. Development Services Manager Jackie Scanlon, I just was saying to Ms. Fabian that I don't think I sent them. So we will have to, the August is just the corrections that you all had last month, and then September, so you'll see those in November. Sorry about that. It's my fault.
So I'm sorry, so we don't have either?
You do not have either.
All right, so we have no minutes to approve tonight. That's easy enough. We'll move on then to reports, resolutions, and communications. Are there any reports from commissioners? Mr. Cochran, go ahead.
All right. I serve as the city representative for the county planning, and there's been a lot going on there. And Tron, feel free to chime in if you want, but I'd like to give an update. So the county in the last week held public meetings for their CDO, and which the public comment ended, and then the written comment ended on Sunday or yesterday at 5 o'clock. We heard probably over 100 residents, builders, business community, the chambers, farmers. So it was a great group of people to hear what the changes that are going to be happening in the county. Some of the next steps is the County Planning Commission will have an administrative meeting on October the 24th, review the public comments, discussing the revisions presented by the Monroe County Planning Commission. After the administrative meeting, the CDO will go back to the Planning Commission on November 19th for a vote to give a recommendation to the Monroe County Commissioners, which the final step would go to the county commissioners to adopt the CDO. Some of the highlights are just from the CDO is they're taking 45 zones down to 16. It's a very clearly written document, and it does put some zoning around the Monroe County Airport, which is good. You know, some of the big concerns is, as you know, you change zoning, whether it be our committee or the counties, it could impact property values, which hence could affect property tax assessments. So one document, if anyone wanted to go look at, is the white paper that was put together by 6 organizations, which was the BDC, the Bloomington Board of Realtors, the Builders Associations, Habitat for Humanity, and both the chambers of Bloomington and Ellettsville. A great white paper document, a lot of time, a lot of thoughtfulness went through that. But some of the things that we heard at public comment, just to give you a highlight, is obviously the need for affordable housing, workforce housing. There was some subdivision requests, economic development. People want to keep rural, And then the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan needs updated. That came up quite a bit. And then there were some agriculture concerns as well. So it was great to see public comment. It was great to see the many organizations chime in. And again, I would recommend the public to continue to pay attention because it still needs a recommendation by the Planning Commission, Monroe County Planning Commission, and then also a vote by the Monroe County Commissioners. So, Tron, do you have any updates or anything?
No, I mean, I think you kind of summarized a lot of it pretty well. I'll just kind of get to go on record where I get to publicly thank you now for attending those. There's 2 hearings, and they went pretty long, and I think this is a great way to kind of extend more collaborative measures in having representation both on the county and the city planning commission from each other's commissions. So, yeah, so that's it.
right.
Yeah,
You have
pay
any
attention. Again, I guess the only thing I would say is monroecdo.com for the latest information. So that's about it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
cool.
you. Any questions from other commissioners on that report? Any other reports from commissioners? All right, any reports from staff? No? All right, moving right along then. We will just jump straight into our first petition, DP 27-24, and I believe Case Manager Eric Grulich is here to present.
Thank you very much. Eric Grulich, Senior Zoning Planner, here to present the petition from Beacon Builders for a property at 1030 West Acuff Road. The petitioners are here to request primary plat approval for a 122-lot subdivision of 48.83 acres. The petitioners are also requesting a waiver from the required 67% of the lots to be accessed by an alley and to allow 2 road segments to exceed the block length of 800 feet that is allowed within the UDO. So real quickly, just a synopsis. This is on the far north side of town. The property has historically been used for agricultural uses and has not been developed in any substantial means. The petitioner is proposing to subdivide the property to create 122 lots. The majority of those would be single-family lots. There would be 5 common area lots or 6 common area lots that would serve a variety of purposes. Detention, tree preservation. There's also an electric line that runs through the center, or it's kind of the west center portion of the site. It's a 100-foot wide easement for transmission lines that moves through there. There are also several sinkholes that are located on the southwest side of the site. And then there are several areas of tree preservation that are scattered around the site as well. The vast majority and the highest quality of those trees are in the southwest portion of the site. So that's where the greatest amount of tree preservation is being preserved and proposed with this petition. And then there are some areas of tree preservation on the north and the east side of the site along the adjacent property lines. So with this request, there are also several new public roads that are being proposed. All of the internal roads would be public. This includes an extension of Prowl Road that moves through the center of the site and would connect to the existing stub of that on the southwest corner of the site. You also have a connection to Kinzer Pike on the east side, as well as 3 stubs to the north, and then 1 stub to the south that would align with one of the roads within the Ridgefield development just to the south of this. So the petitioner is showing a lot of the properties through here that are accessed by an alley. Approximately 59% are accessed by an alley. As we discussed last time, and as I mentioned, the UDO requires 67%, so there's about 9 lots that are short of that. So they are requesting a waiver to allow for the current configuration that is shown and the 59% that would be accessed by the alleys. And so the alleys here are shown in green. So you can see kind of where those are located. They have arranged the site in very much the grid network that the traditional subdivision type was trying to accomplish. And so the petitioners feel that they have incorporated the alleys as much as possible while balancing a lot of the tree preservation, the other environmental preservation standards for the karst geology features. They are greatly exceeding the amount of open space that is required. The traditional subdivision type only requires 5% of the property to be set aside. That's about 2.4 acres, and they're setting aside about 12 acres. A lot of that has to do with the transmission line that runs through here, as well as the preservation areas and the environmental features. So they are greatly exceeding the amount of open space that is being shown. So I mentioned some of the tree preservation that is occurring on the site. So this exhibit shows where that is happening. As I mentioned, the greatest location or concentration of high-quality trees is in the southwest corner of the site, which you can see in the aerial that's kind of in the top left of the screen there. So they're saving a great majority of the trees there, as well as some of the ones along the north and the east property lines. They do meet the tree preservation requirements, so they are not requesting any waivers from that aspect. So the site would have, as I mentioned, several public roads moving through there, including Prow Road. All of these roads would be public. Prow Road would have 7-foot sidewalks, 7-foot tree plots. Internal roads would also be public as well, 6-foot sidewalks, 8-foot tree plots. So they've adjusted their cross sections from the previous hearing to show the sidewalks 1 foot within that right-of-way line and meet the cross sections that are shown in the transportation plan. Another change that's kind of been added since the last hearing, we discussed the street trees along Acuff Road on the south side of the site. There were some utility lines underground that presented difficulties in getting in street trees there. So the petitioner has shown the required street trees in that area on the north side of the sidewalk. So they still have the utilities in there without the interference, but have shown the street trees on the north side of the sidewalk so that we still get those in there. Otherwise, within the rest of the development, they've provided all of the required street trees. So they also will have an amenity area of a park that is on the north side of the lot on one of the common area lots. And so they've included in the packet kind of a rendering of what that park would look like. They have shown some playground features, bike rack. It's kind of just a general plan for that area. We have included a condition of approval, just somewhat showing and requiring this particular element. But we can certainly be open to those exact specifications for the amenities when they come forward with the plat for that particular area. Again, they're not required to have, a playground feature. This is just something that we felt like would be important, kind of given the location of this property on the far north side of town. Cascades Park is somewhat close to this, but it is somewhat removed. So given the vast amount of open space on the property, having some kind of an amenity on the site seemed appropriate. So as we discussed last time, this would be constructed in 3 phases. So it was certainly a priority from the staff's perspective to ensure that Prow Road was constructed with the first phase. So you can see that first phase in blue. The second phase would be the red phase on the north side, and then phase 3 would kind of be the interior area. So with phase 1, we would get Prow Road extended through the site from the south end to the north end of the site. And then the other phases would come forward, as a petitioner moves forward with the project. So they have submitted several renderings. These lots would be managed by Beacon, and so owners would pick through or work with them to select certain features and design elements based on what they offer. So they've included a variety of features and different looks. One of the things that we discussed last time was the covenants and restrictions. They have amended those a little bit to take into account some of the Planning Commission's comments, and those covenants and restrictions are included in the packet as well. So with this, as I mentioned, they are requesting 2 waivers. One of those is from a requirement of the UDO to have 67% of the lots served by an alley. So we did identify, and I think we talked about last time, on the north side of the site, there are approximately 9 lots short of meeting that 67% requirement. The alley could be incorporated on the north side of the site, along the north side of lots number 111 through 118, and that would meet the UDO requirement. We did not find any unique circumstance that prevented an alley from being installed along that area. So we did make findings for the subdivision waiver. Given the low number of lots that are along here, we did not find any negative impact specifically on public health or safety. Obviously the purpose of the alley was to reduce drive cuts along a street, therefore making it safer for pedestrians. But given the low amount of lots here and the low amount of traffic, certainly did not find any negative impacts to public health or safety if the alley is not required along there. The other waiver that they are requesting is the block length. The UDO has an 800-foot maximum block length, and there are 2 sections of proposed roads that would exceed that. One of those is the Prow Road extension on kind of the center portion of the site, and that is mitigated by the alley and a green space. So the intent for the 800-foot block length was to not have an element where you're going to have a significant length of houses in a row, without any kind of breakup of massing and diversity along there. So the alley and the open space along there does create that breakup. You only have about 10 lots that are in a row there. So that's certainly a fair expectation to give that waiver. The other road segment that exceeded that was the other blue line on the west side of the site. Again, this particular block has several common areas located along there that breaks up that aggregation of houses, as well as the transmission line that runs through that as well. So although it greatly exceeds that 800-foot, you do have a lot of breakup as you move along that road, so we did not find any negative impacts. And certainly there are unique conditions there for the environmental preservation and the transmission line that prevent them from installing the blocks, the streets that would meet that block length requirement. So with that, we did make findings for the waivers. As I mentioned, and as the staff report says, we did not find any unique circumstances that did not allow for the alley to be installed on the north sides of the lot. So we are not recommending approval of that waiver. We did find that the waiver for the block lengths was met for the criteria, and we are recommending approval of that waiver with the 4 conditions that are listed in staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Is there a representative of the petitioner who'd like to add anything to the presentation tonight?
Good evening. My name is Daniel Butler. I'm with Bynum Faneuil & Associates. You heard a lot of good just kind of overview of the project, so I won't kind of go through everything again, but I'll just give you a quick update on things that we've responded to from the last time we're here, introduce ourselves again. With me tonight is Bill Evans. He's with Beacon Builders, so if you have any questions directly for the developer, he's here tonight. Also online is the traffic engineer, so if you have any direct questions for the new traffic study, I know there were some questions about what time of day that was happening, would there be any additional issues that are caused, especially as you approach Arlington Road, and that's, kind of gives away what the traffic study indicated, that it doesn't really impact our area too much. But the issue is more down towards the Arlington Road area. But he is on, his name's Matt Brown, he's with A&F Engineering. So if you have any questions, he should be on the call. We responded to a lot of the items that you have mentioned. It's been a challenge, this making a neighborhood in this area that really doesn't impact the environment the way that we wish to preserve, natural features. I thought from the beginning, Bill here has been really adamant that we don't try to go through natural features, and we, Andrew Seaborg can tell you that we, months and months ago, we've tried to maximize this lot. And since then, we've done many iterations. It's been a long process to be something that is balanced with the kind of, get some lots in there. We're now introducing 122, but also preserve the environmental features mixed with treat all the stormwater that is coming off the site. There is 5 stormwater facilities that we've introduced to make sure that not much, if anything, is coming away from the site without being treated. So we've done that. When we're looking at the alleys issue, we've really tried to keep in spirit of what the UDO, and respect what the UDO is asking for, and that is alley loaded, a certain amount that is alley loaded. We got to 59%, but mixed with some of the other things on the site that we're trying to preserve, trying to create along certain side. We just thought it was unnecessary, in our opinion, undue to try to get up all the way to the 67%, and didn't want to introduce on the north property line. One, because there's natural features up there. There are trees that we are preserving, and they're in our tree count. So that's one reason why we're not doing an alley on the north. Another reason, a lesser reason, is that there is a grade change between the property to the north and our property, so it would put, it would kind of lock the north property into having to do some grading work up there that we thought that wasn't necessary, and so that's another reason, and that's why we chose to stick with the 59% at this time. But we like the alley loaded product. We agree with the nature of what the city is asking for with having that type of product, but we're just, like he said, about 9 lots short of having that, but still keeping with that spirit. We introduced a park since the last time you've heard us. We gave you that in I guess concept, but now we have something on paper that you can look at. Again, just working with Beacon Builders has been great, because they have a vision that's not just, let's just make as much money as possible. Let's, and hey, let's set aside some area for some park, say, try to, as much as possible, get, not ask for our tree waiver to, come here. We're preserving 20% that the UDO is requesting, and then, of course, the environmental features that we already talked about. We also responded to the covenants and restrictions. There were several questions, so we've updated that document. If there's any more questions about that, please let us know. Updated the traffic study. That's it for now from me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners, either for the petitioner or for the staff? Commissioner Seaborn.
I think a few just pretty specific questions. This is me just getting back up to speed here, but I guess specific to the park being shown, I think we are ultimately here voting on approving the preliminary plat. Is there anything that sets in place, like a guarantee that there will be that amenity within the plat document itself or the report, or?
Yeah, so there is a condition of approval that was added.
Oh, I see. Condition
Number 3.
Okay. Thank you. That answers that. Then a question about phasing. I don't think in our packet there was anything with the phasing. You showed it as a diagram, but with the preliminary plat, we're just approving the whole development, and that phasing would more come as the next phase, or can you?
Well, so that is an element that is being shown with the primary plat, and there should have been an exhibit in there with their phasing proposal. It did match, the exhibit that I had, so, and I can share that on the screen again if that's helpful. But that is an element that we are requiring, that is required, and so that is why we did have one of those conditions of approval, just reiterating that specifically the Prowl Road extension happens with phase 1.
Okay.
The other roads are internal private roads, so those will just happen as those phases come forward. But we wanted to make sure the private road did get done with the first phase.
Okay. I guess just one phasing always happens, just curious how when a road ends, how is it terminated or how do vehicles turn around? And maybe that was in there and I missed it, but just.
Yeah, that's specific element, in terms of, how close to the north property line does it stub? That's something that really we'd work out with the grading plan.
Okay. And then the last question I had was just actually about a great street tree plan. And going through the report, it's talked about street lighting plan have we have a street lighting? Just always curious how the street trees, street lighting, and signage plans all intersect. They're usually separate sheets, and there's usually I could speak to the status of those plans, or if those are also details that be looked at in more detail the next stage.
Yeah, I don't think that they have submitted a lighting plan yet, so that is something that will just have to be reviewed with the secondary plat when that comes forward.
Okay.
Can I add to that, Eric?
Yeah.
So we do have lighting locations that are shown on the landscape plan now. So we are actually just this morning, we working with Duke Energy to make sure that is, and they received our landscape plan that has our lighting locations on it. So yes, it is on the same plan right now, but it is location. So how many lights you might get for the public are on that plan. Now, actual signage we have not shown on the plan yet.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I had a question about the traffic studies. Given the public comment the last time about assuring that a traffic study was done during the school year and when Monroe County Schools were in session and IU was in session, and I read the original traffic study, but then today we received notice that there was an update at 3:40 p.m., and I haven't read it, I will admit. Can somebody just offer some highlights of whatever the revisions are, maybe, to the traffic study? And if there's anything that is really, I don't know what the difference is between the one that was attached on Friday and the one that was attached today.
Well, I can certainly give a quick synopsis. I believe Matt Brown is on the call, so if you can unmute him at some point, but I believe it did not really, having that update did show that a lot of the traffic was down at a stop near Arlington and not near, close to our project, and wasn't affected during the AM and PM peak using the new time period that was requested, especially when the high school is getting out, because that's going to be more than our normal peak hour that would come, when work gets let out, for instance. I don't know if Matt is on, and maybe he could tell you and give you an update.
Yeah, I can give a quick update. So the differences, to go back to your original question, the differences in the original study and the new study was we expanded our count range. Well, one, we counted, made sure we counted when school, both IU and Bloomington North were in session, which was different from the previous one because we counted those in May. We counted these in late August. And then we extended our time periods. So we covered the time periods of 6:30 in the morning to 10 a.m., which is a very large kind of hours to count in the a.m. And we counted from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. In the evening to get our peak hours. And those hours were chosen not only to cover the Bloomington North schedule, but also to cover, just regular commuter traffic. So that was the main difference. In the findings itself from the original to the new one, the findings weren't that much different. The only finding that was significantly different was at the intersection of Prowl and Arlington in the morning due to school traffic. There's a lot of delay on that southbound approach as people drop off and students are turning in to that Prowl Road approach. So there were some significant delays on the southbound approach today. When we add the traffic from the development, we're only projecting 9 additional vehicles during the AM peak hour. So the delays are essentially the same. It's a very small impact from the development on that intersection, and the real impact is just the school traffic for like a 15 to 30 minute time period when school is ramping up and there's a lot of traffic going in and out of that intersection. Other than that, all the other intersections operate at acceptable levels of service C or above, and really there's hardly any difference between the original study and this revision.
Thank you. I guess I want to make sure that I ask the question that was posed by some residents about concerns about adding a stop sign or removing a stop sign and adding a stop light to help traffic flow around there. Do you want to just highlight a few of those recommendations from the traffic study, just so we can perhaps either invite more public comment or help people realize their comment or their concern has been addressed?
Matt, can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, I didn't attend the first meeting, so I'm not sure what the exact concerns were. The one significant recommendation within the study is because Prow's being extended to the north, there was some discussion of, does Acuff and Prow become a three-way stop? Does it become, which road stops? And our findings found that all-way stop is not warranted at that intersection based on the traffic projections. So we're recommended that Prow basically remains unstopped and Acuff tees into it and they have to stop. Other than that, there were no significant changes to the current traffic controls that are out there today.
Thank you. If I recall, that one of the concerns was just the backup that's created on Kinzer from essentially school traffic. But if the report hasn't changed since I read it on Friday, there was a recommendation that there would be an overture made to the state to see if that could be examined. Is that still correct? I don't know if the
we have reached out to the state, to the Indiana Department of Transportation regarding the intersection at Kinzer and the bypass. Yeah. They express some challenges with adjusting the timing, but we're continuing to try to have some conversations to see what we could do to alleviate that particular intersection. As we noted in our staff report, this particular project is a good 2 miles from that intersection, and traffic from here is not going to increase at that intersection down there, certainly as a result of people moving to school, since this project site is located north of Bloomington High School North. So, this project will not be contributing to the traffic delays at that intersection for those 2 reasons there.
Yeah, a separate traffic concern in that site, not really associated with this project, or at least the traffic study has determined that the project is 2 miles away and not really contributing more to that. Okay, thank you, thanks.
Any other questions from commissioners? Go ahead.
I have a couple of follow-ups actually on things. So first, while we're talking about the traffic study, I'll follow up on the traffic study, because the other thing that I think I just heard Matt online say was calling out Prow and Arlington. And that intersection is technically in the county, I believe. So has there been any overtures made to the county about that backup at all, or should there be? I can appreciate from the perspective of this development that there isn't going to maybe be significant traffic impact at those intersections, but those intersections aren't great right now anyway.
So we can certainly, our transportation engineer is here tonight and can address any of those conversations or how they coordinate that. As we mentioned, this particular site being significantly away from that particular element, that intersection, shouldn't be contributing in any way, and any problems that are there, we're kind of facing right now. But our transportation engineer could possibly enlighten us on that.
I can just generally say that over the years, there have been a handful of conversations with the county about that intersection. It is a kind of split intersection where a section of Arlington is a city road and Prow is a county road. Arlington's just really weird because it's city here, then it becomes county, then it gets city again. So annexation's an interesting part of those conversations. but it's just a joint jurisdiction, and same thing, we've had multiple conversations with NDOT over the years. They're very aware of the traffic issues at the Kinzer intersection, and certainly having continued dialogue with them about that as well.
Thank you. And then I also had a follow-up about the phasing. If we can put that map back up there again. So I just think it's a little funky that it's the blue phase 1 and then the green phase 2, but then there's a little bit of that road section between Prow and that phase 1 that is in phase 3. And I guess I'm picturing somebody coming in off of Kinzer and wanting to go straight there and instead having to turn. So has there been any consideration? Can you tell which little road section I'm talking about there? I'm not sure what it's technically called. Yeah, that little one right there. Has there been any consideration of putting that little road section into phase 2 instead of into phase 3?
Now that you mention it, you're correct. I believe that little section there should go in phase 2, but it must have been oversight on our end. I believe that makes sense in my opinion.
Okay. I don't know if we need to do anything technical about that. I mean, obviously, somebody needing to get into that back corner could get into that back corner by going the long way. It just seemed kind of funky. And then the last question I had, it's because we're having a lot of natural disasters right now. You had the boring stuff in there, which to me indicated that there's not really enough space to actually have basements. So these houses are probably not going to have basements. Is that correct?
No, we think that there's a good chance that there'd be a walkout basement, especially on the road that has a good, we graded in such a way that there would be room for walkout basements, and then the lower level would have room for your separated garage that meets the alley, and you would actually be on the same level on the walkout basement as your garage, and then you walk up, and then the street level on the next level is that street level of the next road up.
I guess I'm thinking about tornadoes and making sure that these houses have tornado-safe spaces, and in Indiana, that's usually a basement. But so are they designed such that there is going to be that kind of below-level interior room that people can take shelter from a tornado in? Do you know?
I'll let our developer answer that one.
My name's Bill Evans. I'm with Beacon Builders. To answer your question, the majority of these homes are going to be slab homes. They meet all the building codes in regard to hurricane, or not hurricane. I got a home in Florida, so I'm thinking about that. All the tornadoes that are in the area and so forth, we build our homes the same as we do if it's anywhere. We meet all the state building codes and the tie downs and all the things that they require. So we will have homes that have basements. We're not saying we won't build basements, but the target people that we're looking for would want primarily that can afford slab homes. But if they want a basement, we'd build them a basement.
My other things have to do with the HOA standards, and I know we talked about these last time, but I read through them again this time and had another couple of questions. In your sign thing, number 10, it says one of the things that it does not specify in there is political signs, and it is election season right now, but technically Indiana law, like state law, restricts any enforcement of political sign stuff within 60 days of an election. So I guess as an elected official who knocked on people's doors in HOA subdivisions, and there was a lot of confusion amongst residents in those spaces. So I would love it if there could be a mention somewhere in there pointing to state law with regard to political signage. And then there's also in number 12, it talks about sidewalks, but it doesn't mention maintenance of sidewalks, and clarifying that Bloomington expects the property owners to maintain the sidewalks, including like shoveling snow. So once again, pointing toward our local code for that kind of maintenance would be good. And I know that chickens got mentioned last time, and it doesn't look like you changed the animal ordinance around poultry. So I'm not sure if that was an oversight or if you intend to not allow chickens.
Yeah, the last one we did read through that, and we have decided that, I mean, we're not opposed to it, but
We're fine. We'll adopt we're required.
So like you could put a line in there just pointing to Bloomington code, like local code for animal stuff.
We'll put a mention of the city code. As long as they meet the city code, we're fine with it.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions? Commissioner Cochran, go ahead.
So going back to the traffic study, I see the intersections that were looked at, but I'm not seeing, was the Bales Road and 40, and I guess 37 looked at, that intersection there by any chance? Just knowing that that's going to be an outlet, and that's not the best intersection. I just was wondering what kind of pressure they felt that this development might put on that intersection.
That intersection was not looked at.
Okay. Oh, that's it, yeah.
Any other questions? I got just a quick question for staff. Okay, we'll have time for comment in a minute. Okay, I'll come back to that just one second. I just wanted to clarify with staff, if we, is the graphic that was shown regarding the phasing, is that referenced as the official phasing plan? And if there is a change to include that small section of road in Phase 2, do we need to note that in our conditions of approval, or do we need to update that graphic somehow, or is it fine the way it is?
I mean, I guess that would be a question. This was, as I was reading the phasing plan and trying to color in what I saw was clear. If the petitioner is saying that that was intended and I just missed it in my coloring, then, then that's great. And that solves it. If not, we can certainly add a condition of approval, just clarifying that that particular road segment will be done with Phase 2.
So you're saying it may be correct in the narrative of the phasing plan and just the interpretation of those?
Well, so their illustration was the only thing that was the phasing plan.
Okay.
Now that I see it, it does appear that the dashed lines are my lines, and so I believe it actually, Phase 3 and Phase 2 does come down. Can you see that little piece that's south of the road?
So it's just that the coloring is...
Yeah, he was just trying to, yeah.
I got you. Okay. So it is accurate minus the coloring error.
It appears so now that I'm looking at it more, but that was the intention nevertheless.
Okay, very good, very good. Commissioner Smith, did you have a question?
I have to go back to kindergarten.
Explain why we don't like the 59% alleyway discussion. It seems like your findings were, yeah, no big deal, but then you made a negative recommendation for that. But it all seems like trees have to come out. It's more impervious surface. It's a single-loaded alley. Seems like there's a lot of reasons to give that to them.
Well, so there are three criteria for a subdivision waiver. One of those was that there is some unique circumstance that prevents somebody from meeting that waiver, from meeting that requirement. So that particular element, we did not find anything that was a unique condition that prevented them, for instance, a sinkhole or, some element that prevented them from putting in that alley. The other two criteria, as I mentioned, we did not find any negative findings for those other two elements, but, we have to make findings for all three. So because we could not for all three, that is where we came to our recommendation that that waiver not be approved.
So tree preservation is not a reason to agree to that?
No, so they could certainly meet their tree preservation requirement elsewhere on the site. So it might mean other implications to their site plan. They might lose a lot or something, but that's a separate standard. So when we look at just the perspective of what prevents this alley from being placed here, that conversation in and of itself, there's nothing that prevents that alley from being there. It might have other implications, but they might be able to meet that tree preservation by adding a little bit more elsewhere on the site. But that's a separate element of it.
All right, what is the purpose of the connection to Kinzer Pike? Is that a fire department requirement? Because you have 2 access points for 120 lots.
Oh, sorry, you mean on the east side of the site here? So it's general connectivity. So we want to have as many connections to public roads as possible to alleviate traffic congestion in one place. Certainly emergency services likes to have more than one road in and out. It just fulfills a lot of the goals in our comprehensive plan and planning documents about increasing connectivity. Gives people more ways to get in and out, and helps disperse traffic from everybody having to go to one road.
Well, it's 450 feet of road, impervious surface, sidewalks, and things that just don't need to be there. I'd much rather have it be green space. But there's no code violation for that. We already have 2 access points. The subdivision would meet it without that.
The UDO does not have a specific requirement for subdivisions of how many points. There's general language that says, we want to achieve connectivity to the highest degree possible in as many situations as possible.
Yep. Okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Burrell.
So on the north end, is the elevation detrimental to is that too much of a problem to put the alley in the back? I mean, I can't tell when you look on the 2D drawing, is the elevation it's too much of an incline to put a alley in the back? I think I heard something about that.
Yeah, I mentioned that was one of the reasons why we had chose not to put it back there right on the property line, because in the future, if someone were to connect or have lots that would back up to it, there would be a good amount of cut that would require them to bring their down to what we're creating on that end, and that's one of a more minor reason, but that is one of the reasons why we also saw on that end that it wasn't as easy to provide that and connect to.
What is the slope from the beginning of the lot to the end? Can you tell, or?
From the back of the lot to the front of our lot, is that what you're asking? Or?
Well, so you have the road, I'm looking there, lot 11, 12. So from the front of the lot to the back of the lot, because the alley would go in the back, correct?
Correct.
So how much of an elevation change is that? I mean, I know it's hard to tell. I mean, I see the lines. I know it's going one way, almost sideways.
Yeah, the grade differential is there now. There is seemingly maybe the lot owner previous to us had kind of maybe done some cut or something that's there now with, some mature trees that are growing in that area. Yes, to answer your question, we, certainly could have some kind of grading pattern that would work, but there's challenges with grading, making sure all the storm water from that would also achieve to a stormwater facility as well. Just adding in the impervious surface back there has challenges. I'm not saying that it's impossible. It's just a reason why we've chosen not to do it for the good of, we believed, the complex that we're making.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Just one more to follow up on that, I guess. If we were to if we were to deny that request for that waiver, as staff has recommended, does that change the tree preservation plan? Would you have to modify the tree preservation plan that's been submitted?
Yes, they would have to find other areas on the site to preserve trees to meet that requirement. They're only about 1/10 of an acre within what is the allowance right now. As I mentioned, they would have to look at other areas where they are proposing to take out trees and say, okay, can we save these now? It's certainly possible, as you look at the tree preservation exhibit, one of the areas where the trees are being proposed to be taken out that could be saved are over on the west side of the site. One of this hatched area over there, for instance, whether or not that size would offset that, I don't know, haven't done that calculation. But it would not change what their tree preservation requirement is.
Sure,
They would just
sure.
have
But
to
it would
find other
change
ways
the
to meet it.
drawings, right? It would change where they are preserved. And so how would that then, how would those changes be approved? Would we just be delegating that to staff to approve the updated plan, or would that come back?
So
in
we
a-
would look at the secondary plat when that comes forward to make sure that it still meets, so the primary plat is laying out the overall network of roads, lots, easements, meeting all of those. There are some small changes that are allowed. Certainly if there's a condition of approval that requires the alley to be there, they would show that alley along those lots, and then we would make sure on the secondary plat that they've compensated where they're now making up those trees.
Got it. All right, thanks. Any other questions?
Brad, could I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
There are some significant trees up there, and so that is another reason why I don't believe we've kind of flippantly said we just don't want to do an alley up there. We don't believe that product is necessary. We're obviously adhering to that in the spirit of it much throughout our site. There is some mature trees up there that are larger than other areas on the site. So if you're asking also what kind of there's not other areas that would have even the size, some of the size that are up there. There's some, I don't remember all they're in our plan set, but that was another reason for our choice of that particular area, not wanting to disturb those.
Got it, thanks. All right, we will move now to public comment. So if you would like to make public comment on DP 27-24, if you're here in the chambers, just make your way to the podium, state your name for the record. You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you are joining us online, click on the reactions button, click on the raise hand button, and we will recognize you when it's your turn to speak. If you have trouble finding that button, you can also just send a chat message to the host, Jackie Scanlon, and we will do our best to recognize you when it's your turn. Is there any public comment?
Don't see anything on Zoom.
Okay, last call for public comment on DP 27-24. All right, well, we are back then to the commission for any final comments or for a motion.
Can I make a motion? You want to do comments first? I don't know the
Yeah, let me
rules.
just-
I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
And it might get us,
You'll be
well,
next.
at least I want to put it out there. I appreciate what the builders and the petitioners have proposed and their appreciation for the alleyway access. However, I'm pretty conflicted on this one. I can see the dilemma. The removal of significant trees that would be required to allow the alleyway, the lot reduction, the whole idea of more pavement in general, since there is already a road right in front that provides access to these lots. It's not clear to me what the best route is. I really want to respect the UDO, though, and what it really requires of us, in that it's really specific about the proportion of alleyway access that allowed, but, almost 60% and 67%, how much, ease do we have in that? So that would be one question. And I also think that while I would prefer to find some unique circumstance that would not allow the alley to be used or built in this space, I think we have to look at some other trade-offs here, given the amount of alleys, the fact that the rest of the development does have that alley access. So to me, there might be some reasons to, review this again and for our commission to actually allow this waiver for the reasons that there is value, that there is no negative impact for safety, that there's low traffic on this site. The whole purpose of the alley is for safety, and that's not the trade-off we're making. So to me, that this makes sense to really consider this pretty thoroughly. So I'm persuaded that there's reason to pause and think about this and what's in the best interest of the environment and the preservation of trees that might be significant in this space. I'm probably going to regret it if we find out that there's a new development north of this that could access the same route, and then that's going to really make it, then I will not like the decision, but right now, I think there's at least reason to think about it. So those are my comments about the alleyway access that I realize is a significant issue here.
Thanks. Commissioner Smith?
I always wanted to make a motion, but I'll wait on comments. Whatever I'm supposed to do.
You're welcome to make comment or make a motion. We can continue to have discussion once your motion's on the floor.
You want to comment?
Sure.
Sean wants to comment.
Hey. Well, actually, just one quick question, and I guess this is to Eric. Lots being served by an alley is the only thing that this petition isn't meeting, correct?
Well, that and the waiver for the block length exceeding 800 feet.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I think the lot might actually just kind of provide those practical difficulties of understanding why that's being requested. This serving an alleyway and, tree preservation and reconfiguring things might have a couple of different thoughts on it outside of just the practical difficulty of the lay of the land and other conservancy sinkholes and karst features, I guess. With that, I guess my real point is, the reason that they're saying no is because it doesn't conform, and there's a lot to do that. And if we had a different percentage and it meet that, then they would say yeah. So I think there's a lot of give and take, and this kind of goes in line with basically the general comment I had is I appreciated the petitioner coming here, listening, and then coming back and presenting something that was different. A lot of the times we'll have requests, and what we see the following meeting is pretty much the same thing. So I just really wanted to express that because even some of my comments were incorporated into this, and you kind of have to find that middle ground. So I agree that future development could impact this a bit, but I think we're talking about access for 9 homes, and I feel like the charge of the commission, and I'm not a voting member, is really to make that determination if this is something that they can grant a waiver for or not. And that's why, that's one of our charges. So, thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments or?
You have comments?
Go ahead, Commissioner Stossberg.
Thank you. I'm also really conflicted about the alley thing, and I think where I come down to it on, and I appreciate as well that you guys clearly have put a lot of thought into this. And where I come down to it is the 50-year view and kind of acknowledging, okay, these houses are going to be there for a while, and how they're built and how the structures and how they interact with the road is going to be there for a while. And I think the drive cuts would be problematic in my point of view, and I would much rather have them be alley have the garages come off the alley. So I'm in the staff's position here in terms of saying I would like those to be alley loaded. I appreciate the trees, and I appreciate that there are big trees back there, and I don't know if it's how that space exactly works out, and I appreciate that difference in elevation with the next lot, you know, and the assumption that honestly in 50 years, probably that lot will also be developed into a subdivision, and that's, you know, you got to take a long view of this in my mind. And in 50 years, if that lot is developed and those 3 roads are going up through, then there will be more traffic potentially going through that space. And there's a park right there that you guys are putting in that looks beautiful, and I love that. But I wouldn't want my kid to have to cross driveway after driveway after driveway to get there by themselves if I was in another one of those places. So that is my position on the alleys, is I do want this subdivision to meet that alley requirement at this point, because I think that you can, and that it is possible, and that would be my overall preference in supporting Bloomington's mission and the UDO as it stands. So that's where I'm coming down on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, or are we ready for a motion?
I guess I'm ready for a motion, but some questions, I guess. To build an alley adjacent to the property line, I'm assuming would require impacts to the adjacent property. Oftentimes, we struggle to even get roads built to the property line, so I think there's some practicality on how you would actually physically build this. And I'm also just generally concerned, like, if this condition is approved, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but adding an alley would just kill the primary plat, and it's a whole new primary plat. Like, it's just a different project. And I think that just is the impact of what we're talking about. And adding the alley would actually put more traffic at an intersection on Prow, which is a major road. The road that would have driveways without the alley is a road that does not, it provides connections, but it's not a through road. I'm just laying out a couple things that I'm seeing as I'm looking at it for everybody's consideration. And if I'm mistaken on any of that, somebody could correct me.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Questions?
Did you have?
Following up to his comment, if I may.
Sure, go ahead. You have time remaining.
He said it well. That's correct, and we did not think about, yes, all those alleys would actually go back to Prow. So that would be adding more, not on the street that would be east and west. So he asked if that sounded right, and there's nothing that he said that's not correct, but he said it well.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
I'm going to make a motion. My motion is based on the spirit of our ordinances, but also the spirit of what they're trying to accomplish, balancing the concern of green space, impervious surface, tree preservation, with the intent of our ordinance. So I'm going to move approval of DP 27-24, Plat 2024-07003, with, I believe, 6 conditions. And I'm going to read them specifically so we're not in question. The extension of Prow Road must be constructed with the first phase as shown in the submitted phasing plan. And I'm going to add to that, Plan Commission acknowledges this project will be completed in 3 phases per the submittals, including the small stub road, since there was some uncertainty there. I don't want to have to come back for a phasing plan. Approve the waiver request to reduce the number of lots to be served by alleys to 59%. The proposed park area must include the minimum elements shown in the submitted renderings. All area of tree preservations must be protected per UDO standards. Remove the Kinzer Pike connection to the east based on the submitted plan. Approve the waiver of block length per staff findings. Oh, I have a 7th. Modify covenants to include city codes regarding chickens. Does that cover your request and what they said? What was the city code comment?
The chickens does, honestly, I stopped listening after you said removing that cut to Kinzer, because I think that access to Kinzer should stay in.
We're going to get to vote on that. That works.
Okay, so let me just, if I can summarize here, you're wanting to approve both of the requested waivers.
Yep.
And add an additional condition that would remove the
Stub to the east.
the stub to Kinzer Pike. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think 450 feet of road needs to be built for no reason
All right.
and maintained for the rest of our lives.
I'm going to just, before we go any further, I just want to ask staff if that condition were included here, does that trigger any other changes that would have to come back for our approval? Or
Yeah, so it sounds like you're referring to maybe to the Kinzer
the
Pike.
Kinzer Pike connection?
So we would need to talk to emergency services because they have not reviewed that element.
But are those things that could be handled at staff level, or does that trigger anything that's going to kick this back to us for another hearing?
Unless there's some kind of a turnaround or something that is needed, but no, I mean, just simply removing that connection unless it impacts their traffic study. That could certainly be an implication of that. I'm sorry?
Sorry, Jackie Scanlon, Development Services Manager. Yeah, I mean, we would have to think about, like Eric said, if there's a terminus there now, are they going to have a hammerhead? Are they going to lose lots there? Because you can't just build you can't just build that stub sometimes for EMS, as you guys have seen on other subdivisions that we've done. They need to be able to turn around in the back. So that may require losing some of those lots there on the east side that right now have access on that through road. Am I missing something, Andrew? Is there something you might have thought of from a?
Might trigger a block length that exceeds, because that entire stretch of road would be one block per the
got it.
UDO definition.
Yeah, we'd have to look at that as well.
I also feel like if we terminate that road, it's going to make the entire neighborhood like one big cul-de-sac. And we do not want cul-de-sacs.
Here's what I would like to do. Sounds like that particular point is going to be one that is contentious. So here's what I would like to do. I will second your motion, just to get that on the floor. And then I would like to just have a vote on that particular point. So your motion is on the table. If someone would like to amend that motion to remove that additional condition to remove the removal of the Kinzer connection, then we can just have a straight up or down vote on that particular item, and then we can go back and vote on the rest of it. Is that fair?
So vote yes would be to keep the connection.
No. Well, right now, you're
On your amendment, if somebody.
I haven't proposed an amendment yet. I'm saying I think someone should, if they object to the removal of that Kinzer Pike connection, make a motion to amend the motion to remove it. In that case, a vote yes.
Point of order, can we amend a motion?
Sure. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Sorry, Miss Lacy, are you there? We're having a question about process.
Yes, I am. Yes, you can amend the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the table. Would anyone like to offer an amendment to that?
I would like to have that motion written out in front of me because there were 7 things, I think, that he listed, and that goes well beyond what is written in the staff. So, Chris, could you state your motion again?
Yeah, most of this is theirs. One of them is the black blank waiver was not part of the recommendation, so I have that.
Chris, could you turn your mic on? I think it's on.
Oh, it was. Most of these are theirs, by the way. They actually had 5. They didn't include the block length waiver in the recommendation, so I added that because I thought we needed to say it out loud. So number 1 is.
So it is there. It's just not in one of the numbered conditions of approval.
I just thought it needed to be in the
So
conditions.
both of the 2 waivers are mentioned in the recommendation. They're just not in the numbered
Okay.
conditions of approval.
Okay. Well, I was just being clear. Since
Yeah.
I was reading it, I just wanted to be clear. So number 1 is as written only, I acknowledge the 3 phases. Number 2 is I just reversed that, saying approve the waiver to request to reduce the number of lots to be served by Alice to 59% instead of not agreeing to that. Third is the same. The proposed park area must include the minimum elements shown in the submitted renderings as written. 4 is as written. All areas of tree preservations must be protected per UDO standards. 5, remove the Kinzer Pike connection. This is really from the north-south road to the east, that little stub street, and then the running through that lot that fronts Kinzer that takes all those trees out. That's the removal of the Kinzer Pike connection. Approve the waiver of block length per staff findings. I thought I needed to add that, but if I don't, that's fine. And then modify covenants to include city code regarding chickens. So I thought that was the discussion we had.
You said that too fast for me to write it down, Chris. Did staff get that written down?
Yes, I can try to.
Could
But in
you-
essence, condition 1 per staff report. Condition 2 is approving the waiver in essence. Condition 3 per staff report. Condition 4 per staff report. Condition 5 would be removing Kinzer Pike. And then condition 6 would be amending the covenants to allow chickens.
And sorry, I need to add, if you're going to recommend waiver approval, whether we need findings. So I think Eric said he had some drafted. Yeah.
All right. Comfortable with that? We all know where we are. We all know what the motion on the table is? Yes?
Yes, so Councilmember Smith made a motion, Councilmember Whistler seconded the motion, so we're ready for roll.
Well,
Well, so if you, yeah, so
Someone-
you would need to
if
propose
someone would like to
findings.
we need
You would
someone
need to
move-
propose
make an
findings for that
amendment
waiver.
first, to move that we amend the motion, if anyone wants to. It sounds like somebody did.
So I would want to, okay, so first of all, the easy one, if we're going to ask them in this motion to amend their covenants to allow chickens, I think that we need to more mention amending their covenant to follow city ordinance with regard to chickens, and follow state law with regard to political signage, and follow city ordinance with regard to sidewalk care and maintenance, because those are the 3 things that I mentioned in terms of the covenants, and wanting to make sure that those align in terms of expectations and understanding. So if we're going to add that in, then if we're going to add the chickens in, then I think that we need to add the other 2 things in as well. I did not hear that the petitioner had an issue with any of those 3 things. Secondly, I would want to strike the condition to eliminate that connection to Kinzer. I lost track of what number that was. I think it was number 5. But I would also strike the waiver I would also strike the alley waiver. And I'm not sure, I mean, I think that the alley waiver thing, I think we're kind of split on that. So I don't know if that needs to have an entirely separate vote.
I think it would be wise procedurally for us to do that separately if you want to make a separate amendment. Here's what I'd like to do. First, the changes on the covenants. Would you accept those as a
Yes,
friendly
absolutely.
amendment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the adding of the additional requirements on the covenants, we're just going to accept that as a friendly amendment, and that is now part of the original amendment. So your second motion here is to amend the motion to remove the, I think it was number 5, to require or to remove the connection to Kinzer Pike.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm wondering if procedurally it would be easier to take these, I mean, there's 2 things that might be controversial here, I think, as part of this. One is that Kinzer connection, and the other one is the alley waivers. So
Got it.
I think
Let's take them one at a time.
might say that maybe we should maybe procedurally withdraw the motion that's on the floor, and then just separately vote on the alley waiver and the Kinzer Pike thing, and
Yes,
then
that's where
have
we're
a
going.
complete
You're-
one.
You're making a motion to essentially keep in the connection to Kinzer Pike, correct? All right. and we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we're gonna vote on that. If you want to make another motion to, again, deny the alley waiver, we can have a straight up or down vote on that as well. So, what we have before us right now is a motion to amend the motion to essentially keep the connection to Kinzer Pike. So a yes vote on this is a vote to keep the connection to Kinzer Pike. Everybody understand that? Okay. Can we call the roll? Is there any discussion we need to have on that?
Brent, just for our clarification, so the first vote here is for Chris, Councilmember Smith's motion.
The first vote here is to amend that motion.
Okay, all right.
To remove his additional requirement on the Kinzer Pike connection.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on what was being voted on first.
So a yes vote here is to keep the Kinzer Pike connection. A no vote is to keep Chris's motion the way it was, which adds a requirement that they remove that connection.
Seaboard,
Yes.
Cochran,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Smith,
No.
Strasburg,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes. All right, so that motion carries. So now,
Oh, Burrell, I'm so sorry, I didn't go back up. Yes?
Yes.
all right, so that motion carries. So now we still have the motion on the table. It no longer includes that particular provision. We want to make any more amendments to that motion before we call the final roll.
So is this the moment to amend
This
the
will be a
alley
moment if you
waiver
want to
and say
move
that
to
we
make
want to
another
keep
amendment
the alley
to-
waiver in, and see how we land on that, honestly? So I've made that motion to.
So your motion
to-
is to amend the motion and deny
Deny
the
the alley
waiver
waiver.
on the alley. Okay, is there a second? Hold on, we haven't had a second
We
for
haven't
the
had a
motion
second
yet. Is
yet.
there a second?
Second.
And now, how do,
So now a yes vote on this is to deny the waiver
Okay.
on the alley and to require the alley.
a no vote is to give them the 59%?
A no vote is to maintain your original
Okay.
motion, which would approve that waiver.
And this is separate.
This is separate. This is just on the amendment here. So again, a yes vote is to deny the waiver and require the alley. A no vote is for Chris's original proposal, which approves that waiver and allows them to move forward with no alley.
Can I ask a procedural, for this to pass, does a majority of those present or a majority of the plan commission need to support?
Great question. Majority of Plan Commission is required for all for all votes for Plan Commission.
You would need five votes.
Need 5 no's.
Okay, I think we are ready to call the roll.
Cochran,
No.
Kinsey,
No.
Smith,
No.
what was that?
No.
Strasburg,
Yes.
Whistler,
No.
Burrell,
No.
Seaboard.
No.
All right, so that amendment fails. We are back to the original motion on the table as amended.
But first, if you're going to approve the waiver, which you now have voted to do so, you need to present findings for that waiver.
We need to adopt some findings, yes.
Yep, do you have a suggestion, Mr. G?
And you have
I think Eric has a
draft
suggestion.
findings for us?
Yes, so our staff report already made findings for 2 of the 3 in regards to the unique conditions. It sounds like some of the testimony that we have heard regarding the unique conditions would be the topographic changes along the north side, the allowance for greater tree preservation, and the low number of lots that are affected by this create the unique conditions that would allow for you to approve the waiver.
So, guess we would just need another amendment to the motion to adopt those findings.
Correct, yes.
To adopt the findings as discussed.
Second.
Specifically, the findings of,
Yeah, findings of fact related to the waiver for allowing the subdivision not to meet the requirements of the alley percentage.
so we would need a specific finding of fact here, which is,
The three elements there, just.
we've got 2 out of the 3, right? We need,
Oh, no,
No,
sorry. He
those
was
are
saying
three.
that in the staff report, there are 3 things, and he already said you meet 2 of them, that the petitioner meets 2, and now what he has just verbalized meets the 3rd. It just also happens to be 3 things.
gotcha. All right, so we're clear on what that motion is.
Do you want to read those one more time? So the proposed findings are, for reasons, to allow this, the unique circumstances are topographical considerations, the greater street tree, or greater tree preservation, and low,
The low number of lots along this segment of street.
low number of lots. So those are the unique conditions.
Okay, so you'll just accept that as a friendly amendment to your motion?
Yes.
As the seconder, I will accept that as well. And I think we can then move forward with our final vote on this motion. So again, the motion is, really differs from the staff recommendation in that it approves the waiver for the lack of the alleyway. It includes additional requirements for changes to the covenants, and I think that's it.
Yeah, so in essence, you are replacing condition number 2 with the condition regarding the covenants and restrictions.
Yep.
So you would be approving this petition with the 2 requested waivers,
Yep.
with the 3 conditions, condition number 1, 3, and 4 in staff report, and then the new condition regarding the changes to the covenants and restrictions.
Yep, I think that's right. I think we're ready then. Any final comments or discussion before we call the roll? Commissioner Strasburg.
I'm just going to say right now, I generally approve of this, but I am voting no because of the alley thing, okay? And that's the only reason. But I just wanted to say that out loud and explain that to you, and yeah, thanks.
Any other comments? All right, let's call the roll.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Strasburg,
No.
Whistler,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Cochran,
Yes.
Seaboard.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
All right, motion carries, and DP 2724 is approved. Thank you. All right, thank you for your patience. That was, hopefully, it only gets easier from here. We'll move on to ZO 30-24. I believe we got Jackie Scanlon to present this one.
Okay, thank you. This should be a quick one. This is for the amendments that we sent to council as ZO 30-24. The Plan Commission heard that case at their August 24th hearing, and then you sent the petition to Common Council with a positive recommendation. It was for Unified Development Ordinance Code changes related to syncing our code with the new Title 13, as well as syncing the slope restrictions with the new state code that went into effect in July. So council member noticed that one of the references we hadn't updated. One of the references to 18% slope needed to be updated to 25% slope, so they did that through amendment, and because they amended it, it has to come back. So they did that at their September 18th regular hearing, and now it's back here. So I kind of forget the verb here, but in some way certifying their amendment so that this can then be signed by the mayor. I can answer any questions.
there any questions from commissioners? No? No questions? All right. Is there any public comment on ZO 30-24? If you're joining us online and you'd like to make comment, click on the raise hand button or send a chat message to Jackie Scanlon and we will recognize you.
No messages online.
Last call for public comment on ZO 3024. All right, we're back to the commission for any final comments or a motion.
So, oh yeah, sorry. So the motion would be recommending approval of the amendments to ZO 3024 from council.
I move that we recommend approval of the amendments from council.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Okay, let's call the roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Strasburg,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Cyborg,
Yes.
Cockrum,
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. We are now on to MP-38-24. Petitioner here again is the City of Bloomington, but we have Ryan Roebling to present the case.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm here to present MP 3824, which is an amendment to the City of Bloomington's transportation plan. So this amendment will incorporate the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. This version is the first Plan Commission draft, and I'll explain a little bit what that means in a little bit here. But why are we amending the transportation plan? Between 2019 and 2023, there have been 443 fatal or life-altering crashes on Bloomington streets. These crashes have permanent and often devastating impacts on families, friends, and neighbors throughout the city. In April of this year, Council passed Resolution 2024-07, which stated a clear goal of achieving 0 traffic deaths and serious injuries on Bloomington's streets within 15 years. Council also called for the creation of this safety action plan. The goal that states the city is committed to implementing projects, programs, and policies, and will work to reduce and eventually eliminate all serious and fatal crashes on our roadways to ensure that everybody who is using the city's streets, whether walking, biking, driving, or taking transit, can always reach their destination safely. So this ambitious goal will be achieved with the help of this safety action plan and the hard work of elected officials, community advocates, local businesses, and Bloomington's roadway users. The plan includes 4 major sections: finding our focus, setting the stage, getting to zero, and tracking progress. The first major change the safety action plan will bring forward is the official adoption of the Safe Systems approach to transportation planning efforts. The Safe System approach is founded on the belief that humans are human. People will not always behave perfectly, won't always follow the rules, and may make bad decisions on the roadways. The Safe Systems approach confronts this reality by creating a multifaceted system which acknowledges that many contributors to roadway safety outcomes, safe road users, post-crash care, safe roads, safe vehicles, and safe speeds all work to create safety and redundancy. This redundant approach means that even if one of these principles fails, there will be multiple other principles ready and waiting to ensure that this situation remains safe. For example, if an individual chooses to drive at excessive speeds, the design of the roadway, either through narrow lanes, separation of roadway users, or speed humps, or other factors, will all keep these users safe. Roadway safety and equity go hand in hand. The transportation is vital for daily life and community interaction, but policies have historically created inequities for marginalized groups and low-income communities. These groups often face pollution, poor infrastructure, safety risk due to past discrimination practices. And this safety action plan attempts to address these issues by prioritizing equitable planning and ensuring that this transportation system is safe and accessible to everyone. All right. There are many factors that contribute to how safe the city's streets are. Design, operation, and user behaviors all play important roles and must be understood in order to make them better. The setting the stage section describes the result of these factors by completing a roadway safety analysis, which uses crash data and public feedback to assess current conditions. This approach helps identify patterns and gather community input on how to make streets safer for everyone. The first step of the safety analysis was to study fatal and serious injury crashes. FSI crashes is what I'll probably call them from here on out. Here we've located every FSI crash between 2019 and 2023. The streets of Bloomington's with the largest cluster of FSI crashes are the Bypass, East and West 3rd Street, College and Walnut, College Mall Road, West Country Club, and Indiana Avenue. You can identify many of these streets due to their high frequency of FSI crashes. Using the data collected, we developed a high injury network to determine streets and intersections that have the highest frequency of FSI crashes. These locations are candidates for safety improvements as part of a data-driven reactive safety program. By targeting these high injury locations with safe system approach, we can ensure that all of our investments will produce strong results for our roadway users. In addition to the high injury network, we also developed a high risk network that identified roads with similar design, land use, and population characteristics. This proactive approach looks beyond past incidences to anticipate future risk, allowing us to pinpoint candidates for safety improvements. For example, Dunn Street shares many traits with Indiana Avenue, which is on the high injury network, but Dunn Street is not. Both are multi-lane, one-way streets with comparable speeds and user characteristics. A proactive approach to safety will ensure that both roadways are analyzed for needs of potential safety improvements. In addition to crash data and analysis, the city set forth on a monumental engagement effort to seek how users feel about safety on the city streets. People's feelings and opinions around street safety are formed through a combination of personal experience, conversation, and stories within their communities, and perceptions. It's invaluable to understand these feelings and thoughts about street safety, because any recommendation or project that results from this plan will aim to not only factually improve safety for the Bloomington streets, but also increase people's feelings of safety as they travel on them. The city conducted a wide variety of public engagement, from an online web map and survey that many of you probably completed, to dozens of events in safety during a safety week. During outreach, we learned that what safety looks like, what it feels like, and what it means to be for city roadway users. The most common result to what makes someone feel unsafe include distracted driving, people driving too fast, and people not yielding or stopping. We also asked roadway users what their priorities were. You can see here that most do not agree that parking should be prioritized over pedestrian or bicycle safety. We also found that a majority would support safer streets even if that were to lead to increased congestion. And most importantly, we found that a vast majority of respondents supported the goal of eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries. These are all helpful in determining what projects will look like in the future. Here we have how safe people feel using various modes of traffic or transport on the city streets. Some interesting results here are that bicycle, scooter, and wheelchair users overwhelmingly feel less than safe. We asked where respondents felt safe or unsafe. Areas that felt unsafe include College and Walnut, specifically between 2nd and 7th, 3rd between Union and College Mall, and the Allen and Walnut Street intersections. Areas where people felt safe include the B line, the 7 line, and Kirkwood Avenue. The most common reason for an area feeling safe was separation of modes, including sidewalks and bicycle lanes. The most common reason for an area feeling unsafe include people driving too fast and drivers not paying attention. So the heart of the action safety plan is its action items. That is, those are items broken into the immediate or short, medium, and long-term goals. These include actions from 5 categories: communication, design standards and data, project programming and funding, government community committees and structure, and project prioritization. Many of the action plans fall within the short-term range. Some examples that Plan Commission themselves may see in the not-too-distant future will include updating the transportation plan based on what we found during this process, revising Title 20 to promote a development that compels slow and safe vehicle speeds, developing a safe routes to school program, and creating a commission whose role is to review and approve all transportation facility projects. Some medium and long-term goals include corridors-wide safety studies, similar to the one we're completing on College and Walnut right now, additional staffing, catalyzing development, and confirming that we're on track to meet our goals. A major part of the safety document, of the safety action plan, is the safety countermeasure toolbox. This will be in an appendix that is included in the final document, but is not included in this draft, as it still needs to be worked out with planning and transportation staff and engineering staff. The final document will help staff identify not just the when and where, but also the cost and method for implementation. This will give council, commissions, and community members a better understanding of what safety countermeasures look like and what that means. So using all that information that we gathered earlier, we created the high-risk network priority corridors and intersections map, which will guide where on the ground safety improvement projects need to take place in order for us to achieve this goal. The map incorporates crash data, user feedback, and equitable access, along with need. It combines reactive and proactive safety methods, and you can see from here some of the highest priority projects include College and Walnut, East 3rd, Kirkwood Avenue, and 4th Street. Completing projects alone is not enough to ensure that we're meeting our goals. The final section of the safety action plan is tracking progress. The city will need to constantly be checking in and weighing its progress. We've outlined the prime performance measures that we'll need to track and report to stakeholders and the community in general. So it's essential that there are regular public conversations about our progress. We'll give an annual update that includes each of the measures tracking actions started and completed, as well as tracking dollar amounts invested, infrastructure improvements added, and outcomes of those improvements. And a thing we're launching here is one way we're going to do that is by creating a crash dashboard. You can see an example of what that looks like here. We'll update this as the plan is finalized, and then once every year we'll have, it'll be updated with crash history and what the improvements we've completed and what they have hopefully added to the system. So as I mentioned before, this is the Plan Commission draft, the first Plan Commission draft, and we'll be bringing this final document back in November. But because of the timeline for completing this project, we have to be completed before January 1st of next year. And the limited number of city council meetings left in the year, we are requesting that you forward MP 3824 with a positive recommendation with the condition that staff continue to finalize the document and present the fully realized document to both Plan Commission and City Council in November. And then I can answer any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Smith.
Is this a city council request that the planning staff has taken on? Where did this come from?
So the original plan got started as a staff project, but then got adopted by council through the resolution. So it started as us looking for potential funding options. The Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program is a federal grant program that requires an action plan, safety action plan. So we started to look through that, and then we decided to take it on as a larger project, and then council joined on board.
I was curious about the design standards in this, and there's just a lot of verbiage. I don't know if there's, I looked through this earlier, and I've looked through it again here. Develop and revise city standard details for driveways, sidewalks, bikeways, et cetera, integrate safe system approach design principles and details. And then establish a policy that states the safety improvements take priority over motor vehicle operations and capacity. Revise appropriate land use and zoning, promote redevelopment and new developments that complement slow vehicle speeds, encourage trips outside of personal vehicles, and funds adjacent transportation safety projects. I've been in this city my whole life. We have an amazingly onerous zoning code. We give lip service to affordable housing every day and violate our own vision statement with our own practices. We now have a code that requires 40% impervious surface for all lots in the downtown. We don't want compact urban form. We have, my lot was that way. There's a lot on South College that's that way, or South Lincoln that's that way, right near the Boys and Girls Club. We have to have 40% impervious surface that has to be grass. Is that not true?
No, that isn't true. The core of the downtown is 100% impervious, and it goes
Okay,
down,
so-
and it only, it doesn't.
All the areas
yeah.
surrounding the downtown, I'll restate my statement. I've got an infill project that's surrounding the downtown, requires 40% impervious surface. We've already verified with you guys. When are we going to write a code that reflects the need of this own thing of walkability and affordability downtown? That's my concern. If we just blanket this, we're going to get a bunch of new ordinances, a bunch of new codes that just drive up the cost of infrastructure and impervious surface and the built environment, which we then have to maintain the rest of our lives. So I get frustrated by this when we're talking about affordable housing in this town now for 20 years, and we won't do it. And then we get stuff like the Bud Core building where it's $670,000 a unit because we had to keep the building because of historic preservation, which also is blanket zoning surrounding our downtown. So I'm frustrated.
Question? You're getting to
Well, yeah, sorry. I don't understand. The hypocrisy just frustrating. Sorry.
That's all right. We'll have time for comment, but if you do have a question, this is the time.
Okay, how
for
do you integrate this? How do we tie this to a code that actually allows all the other things we're trying to do or need to do?
I maybe don't understand your question. You threw a lot at me. So there are absolutely code changes we can make that will increase safety. A common thing, in fact, the UDO does a lot of these already. Driveway widths are pretty much nailed down to the safe system approach. But there are things like setbacks. We allow incredibly far away setbacks. You could change those to build two lines. That would almost immediately lower speeds by narrowing the feel of the road without actually narrowing the road at all. So you could make development closer to the property line, front property line, and that would make it feel like the roadway is more narrow. There are things like that we could absolutely do and adopt that would help safety in measurable ways.
All right, other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Kinsey.
Brian, you mentioned the fact that this originated in some grant searching that was done. And I wonder if you can comment on if there has been some funds allocated or secured via participation in this project, and if there's potential for our approval of this to create more eligibility for grant funds, particularly at a federal level.
So far, there have been no funds sought because we have to complete this action plan first. And yes, part of the reason this is kind of getting rushed at the end here, in appearance only, is that in order to be eligible next year, we have to complete it by this year. So yes, your approval is going to help us find funding for all sorts of projects, hopefully.
Thank you.
Maybe, could I just dig into that a little bit further? You said that's going to help us get funding for all kinds of projects. Specifically, are we talking about funding for more planning activity or funding for actual road construction, sidewalk construction, et cetera?
Yes, so both. The city staff is looking for implementation grants, so actual projects, on-the-ground infrastructure. That's the type of thing we're looking forward to once we complete this. But yes, it could potentially open us up for additional studies or other things.
And there are sources of funding for that actual implementation that require us to have adopted this plan before we apply for those funds? Is that?
Correct. At the beginning of the Safe Streets and Roads for All, there was $5 billion. It's less than that because it's been going on for a handful of years, but that is still available for infrastructure improvement projects.
Thanks. Other questions?
Sure, I guess, as we spoke earlier, just to kind of to clarify that staff's asking for a positive recommendation on this draft document to City Council to start the clock and get on their agenda, recognizing that it is still a draft document, an opportunity for potentially during or after the meeting for planning commissioners to submit feedback to staff to incorporate in a draft that would be proposed as an amendment to City Council. Am I capturing the general?
Yes, you did a much better job than I did. I'm sorry, I should have dove into that. But that's correct. Please send any and all thoughts after this meeting. And like I said, we'll present it. It'll be 2 days before it actually goes to council. We pre-asked to be on the November 6th council, and you all have a meeting on the 4th. So we'll present the final document to you there, and we can still make adjustments. We have a council member here, and we also have a council member on the steering committee who are both, we're hoping, will help us bring forward any amendments.
Can I follow up on that too, though? Just if we took that approach, you'd bring back the final document to us, but we wouldn't be taking action on it at that time, right? We will have already forwarded it, so we wouldn't have a chance to say, no, we don't like the changes that you've made. Is that correct?
That is correct. You wouldn't be able to make changes at that point, but we would bring anything you say forward to council as a potential amendment. It wouldn't look like you actually making the change, but we would make that known if you had a change.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Stausberg? Oh, go ahead.
So I kind of looking at the acknowledgements here, and I think it'd be really nice to actually put somewhere in this document about collaborative measures with the county planning and county highway, also the town of Ellettsville. I'm not saying you're working in a silo and you haven't had feedback. I've saw some MPO representation on here. But I feel like we're missing an opportunity. And if we're really trying to meet this zero fatality, which is a goal NDOT doesn't like people to commit to because they don't find it practical. So it's neat to kind of see us moving forward with that goal. But I think we really need to bring in the more of a regional effort to really provide that safety, because these trails, they're going to connect somewhere. Folks are going to access these trails. Also the roads, you know. We really need to prioritize this and make sure we're not missing any potential infrastructure project coming down the pipeline. And it would be nice to actually have that maybe written in here. I know if you go and ask and no one provides assistance, well, at least we can say we asked. But I think if we had this in this document, that could really pay dividends in the future.
Is that a question you were looking for response
If you wanted to address that a little bit, like I said, I know you're not working in a silo, but it just would be nice to see something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to work with the county and Ellettsville. The only thing is we have to do that through the MPO. We can't do that as the city. So yeah, this MPO staff was involved in this, and they've reached out about potential future inclusion. We could easily implement our plan into any proposed MPO plan.
And I don't want to get into too much dialogue, but, you know, we have limited representation on the MPO, and I think the real key players are like the highway director, the planning director, getting them involved. We also have a coordinated effort with the city and the county to talk about trails, so it's already ongoing. And I'm going to push back a little bit. I think it would be fine to write in this document that you reach out and see if they had any recommendations or any consideration or any future project that you should be aware of that is on the fringe of the city and the county, and also that could impact the town of Ellettsville. So I understand this is a city-driven project, no pun intended, but it would be nice to see that could really create that collaborative measure that we need to see when we're talking about infrastructure projects.
Thank you. Additional questions? Commissioner Stassberg.
I just want to first say thank you guys so much. I know that you guys have been working really hard to get this done by the end of the year. There are pieces of the 2025 budget that kind of depend on the Safe Streets for All plan. And so I think, because this is question time, one of the things that I noticed going through it is on page 32. I think you have a typo. It says in the third paragraph, project staff meet with this group regularly during the project at key decision points. I think that should be past tense. I think it should be met. So that's just a small comment, I suppose. It's not a question, sorry, about that. And I just, I'll have longer comments, I suppose, when we have comment time, but I'm really looking forward to the final draft of this, and I appreciate all of the work on this. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Actually, I did have a question. I'm sorry, I did have a question. It wasn't actually typed in here, right? So on your high-risk network facility profile analysis, you have between the bypass along 10th Street, really all the way to Smith, highlighted in a couple different colors as being needy, and that is a section that NDOT right now is working on renovating, and I think that their project plan is pretty set on the first half of this, but what kind of collaboration have you had, or do you plan to have with NDOT with the rest of them? Because I have to say, having seen that plan and commented on that plan, safety did not seem like their number one priority.
Yeah, so that's a great question. NDOT roadways were included in our safety analysis for just that. It's to make future collaboration have more weight, because we'll actually have the evidence to support not only where the projects are needed, but also what projects we need to implement. So that is part of why we didn't just cut out NDOT projects or roadways. So we're going to always be pushing back against NDOT's potential projects, now with some evidence.
So have you already engaged with them about their first phase of the bypass to Pete Ellis and made any progress on any of those pieces?
The city engineer might be better suited to answer the project question.
By chance, in the last couple weeks, I've reached out to their project manager on that project because it's been a while since we've heard much from them. I would say the project as it looks now looks a lot different based on comments we've provided. There are still ongoing dialogue and discussions, but yeah.
Thank you. I might follow up with more specific requests later. Thanks.
So just to understand, you're asking for an amendment to add this to the transportation plan. I guess I'm asking for, what opportunities do we have to submit edits? Or is it just, we will move this to city council for their review, and they'll just take our comments into consideration?
Yeah, so great question. We will package any and all comments and edits you send to us and include that into the final document. Staff is still working on the final document, so we have time to do that without having to ask council, and then we'll send the whole package to council and ask for their approval. So, and you'll also be able to see at the next meeting if your edits made it in, which they will, because that's
So in the November meeting, so any edits that we want to suggest now could possibly be a part of that, and then we would vote again in November, is that correct?
No, what staff is requesting is that we forward this to the council tonight, which would mean tonight is your one and only chance if you want to make a formal amendment to this. I think what they're assuring us of is that if you have comments, they'll include those edits in the version that goes to council. Of course, you could show up at the council meeting and ask them to make changes as well. But really, like formally, if you want to ensure that there's an edit tonight would be, the one and only chance you've got the authority to do that. After that, you're relying on the kindness and the word of the staff.
So if we decide not to move it forward, what's the next step?
So we would bring this back in November as a completed document, and then we would ask for you to vote then.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
We would bring this back as a completed document in November as planned and ask you to vote then. So that'll kind of run us afoul of timeline, but that's what we would do.
And that would that just require that council calls some kind of special session to get this done before the end of the year?
Yeah, very likely. There's a handful of meetings left at this point.
Any other questions? You got your question answered?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Stossberg.
Just as somebody who sits in on those scheduling meetings, it would be really, really good to be able to keep this on the November 6th meeting. And if it does not get forwarded from Plan Commission until November 4th, then it can't get to our staff in time to obviously get it into the packet for November 6th. And it would really push things. And we have already added an extra meeting on October 30th. So I have a strong preference for getting this recommended to council tonight.
Why didn't we see this before now? Did we get this Friday at 7:30 with the rest of the packet for the first time, or did I just miss something? So why wouldn't we have given a head? We're going to ask to vote on a huge document with a lot of issues, a lot of concerns, I should say, not issues. It might be great, but that's a lot to swallow.
Chris, do you have specific concerns about this?
Yeah, I mean, just based on the reading I did on Sunday and just sitting here now, not understanding what it was, it opens up a whole can of worms that the city council can make whatever design guidelines they want with whatever input, and it's just...
Okay, can you point to somewhere specific in the document?
Can you all wait to be recognized?
Sorry.
This is
I'm
turning
sorry.
into
I read
a
off three of
free-for-all. It is your turn to ask a question. If you have a
My
staff,
question was,
ask the question and we'll
did
have
we
staff
really
answer
get
it.
this Friday at 7:30 with an expectation to vote and approve this tonight?
Yes, it is a heavy ask, and we apologize deeply. It's not the way we wanted to do it. It's just kind of the hand we were dealt, unfortunately, based on consultant timelines and staffing needs.
Regardless of meeting concerns, if this doesn't get approved this year, what's the impact? You can't file for grants?
It would be incredibly unlikely that we'd be eligible for a grant next year.
A specific grant or any grant?
The SS for a implementation grant.
Okay, additional questions?
All right,
Commissioner
I'm
Kinsey.
going to try and frame this as a question, but it's going to be a challenge. I served on this, the Safe Streets Committee, and also am aware of all of the different ways that public input has been sought, and walking has been done on the corridors that are in question. And I'll just say it's a very thorough process. And Ryan, I don't know if, perhaps my question is, what are the lengths of public involvement in this current document?
That's a great question. I would say that as far as planning staff is concerned, this is the largest public input we've ever done. We did a months-long survey and web map, and then we did an engagement blitz called Safety Week, if you recall, where we had dozens of events throughout the city, including meetings with stakeholders including members of the public, and going out and meeting people where they are. So we stood at Sample Gates, we stood at, I think Bryant Park was another heavily attended event, but we stood all around the city and asked people what made them feel safe and unsafe, and talked about the future of this plan and what they're looking forward in a plan like this.
And there were also lots of opportunities to submit comments on every single, it was a complete interactive map where people could submit concerns, comments, questions about any of these areas that you're seeing in these maps. I mean, I have to say just how impressed I was between the designers and the group, the tool group that was engaged to advise on this. I mean, it was really a very comprehensive process. I mean, I realize it's, I was one person on it along with some other folks, but it's, the extent of public input, I think, is pretty significant.
Okay. Please, if you have a question, we will have time for comment after we have public comment. Please try to keep this to questions. Does anybody have any additional questions for staff? None? Okay. We will now go to public comment on MP 38-24. If you are here in the chambers, you would like to make comment, make your way to the podium, state your name for the record. You'll have up to 5 minutes to make your comments. If you're online, click on the reactions tab, click on the raise hand button, or send a chat message to Jackie Scanlon, and we will attempt to recognize you when it's your turn. Would anyone like to make comment on MP 38-24?
Doesn't look like we have anyone online.
Last call for public comment on MP 38-24. All right. We are now back to the commission, and you are free to make comment or a motion.
I'll move that we forward this to council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Does that mean no comments?
If you'd like to make comment, we can have discussion right now on the motion. Any comments?
We can only comment on the motion, or we can make comments about, we allowed to comment now?
You're allowed to comment. Would you like to comment?
Unlike earlier, when we were supposed to ask questions? I'm sure the quality of this work is good. I mean, the concept of safe streets is, I'm not denying that. In new urbanism, we have the concept of complete streets. Usually the biggest obstacle there is the fire department and their ridiculous street requirements and turnaround requirements. My concern is in reading that, just a few of the design requirements, they're very, very open-ended. We already have an onerous built environment requirement. We don't really allow affordable housing. We just put lip service to it, and it just gets old hearing about it. So I'm all for this if we don't care about the cost of housing, but at some point, we got to think about that. So.
All right. Any other comments? Commissioner Sewell.
Yeah, I'll just comment. Certainly look forward to continuing to work with planning staff on working to finalize this draft to be submitted to City Council. Appreciative of all the work they have done and the extensive engagement so far. Certainly the time frame feels odd and uncomfortable and not ideal, but just to note that this does open up the opportunity for significant millions of dollars, it could be very, very big dollars. And so putting that at risk makes me willing to go with the uncomfortable vote to support this, recognizing staff's more than happy to engage with us between now and our next meeting to further enhance this document.
And I just have one more addition. Not only am I really supportive of that extensive and comprehensive effort to pull this report together in a very fast pace in order to make us eligible for these federal funds and some other grant-funded work, it has bothered me as a member, as the Plan Commission representative to the MPO, to continue to accept the state highway essential allowance for a level of crash and fatalities on roads that I consider ridiculous, that we would accept any level of fatality on when we're accepting state highway dollars. So for me, this is really a step in the right direction to really start setting some achievable and reasonable goals for 0 fatalities. So to me, it's hard to continue, as a Plan Commission member on the MPO who makes a comment about this for the last couple years about not accepting any fatalities, to not approve something like this and want to move this forward. It would just be completely contradictory. So with that, I think it's really important that we do move forward with this plan. But the other piece that I feel comfortable about is the fact that this will be modified and approved in phases in terms of what actions happen. It'll be integrated. The priority projects seem very right to me, but the subsequent projects will also undergo vetting and staff input, and I think there will be even more chances to assure that these are the right priorities. I appreciate Commissioner Smith's comments about the concerns about housing, but I think this is a way to make our community safer. So that's important.
Commissioner Strasburg.
I want to once again thank staff for all of their work, and then I wanted to highlight a couple of things that came out of this. One is on page 33 of the report. In response to some of those surveys, it says that most residents are willing to make trade-offs for the sake of safety, that they admit that they don't usually drive at or below the speed limit, which shows people are in support of safety in theory, but need more than a speed limit to encourage them to drive at safe speeds. And it's sentences like that, honestly, I mean, this is why we need this sort of amendment to our transportation plan to be like, hey, we need to make our roads safer. And it's really like philosophical in a lot of ways to be like, oh, well, I can get somewhere real fast, so it's okay if somebody dies every year at that location. Is that really the way we want to think about people and their lives? Because we're in a hurry, so we want to drive fast, so it's okay that somebody's going to die at some point this year so that we can make a right turn on red. And that's what this addresses. Okay, this states a priority for Bloomington to say no. People's lives are more important than you being able to drive fast. And I just really appreciate that in this sentence, most people say, yeah, we are willing to drive a little slower if it means that people are a little bit safer. And that's all roads users. In terms of the vagueness of some of these recommendations, it's about safety. It's about every one of these corridors that are identified as being high risk are high risk for a different reason. And they will need a different change or alteration in order to make them safer. And you can't look at them in a study like this and have a solution for them all. You know, what is needed at the intersection of Kinzer and the bypass, which is state-controlled intersection. I mean, I have had more than one constituent reach out to me in the last couple of months being like, this is a real problem. I'm trying to get to the grocery store. And I don't feel safe crossing the street to get to the grocery store. And we have a lot of spaces like that. And what the study does is it takes those high-risk places and it puts them in one place, and then it empowers us to do something differently, and it opens up pots of money so that we can actually afford to do something differently. So I really appreciate all of the work that went into this. It has been a long process. I'm sorry if Plan Commission feels like it's been a surprise to them, but this is something that's been being talked about since February, maybe, something like that. And I'm really happy that it's finally getting to council so that we can get some progress on it next year with actual funds and projects. So thank you all.
Any other final comments? Last call for comments. All right. Motion is to forward to council with a positive recommendation. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Strasburg.
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Seaboard.
Yes.
Cochran.
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Smith.
No.
All right, motion carries. We are now on to our final petition of the evening, SP-41-24. And once again, I believe we have Jackie Scanlon to present the case.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, let's see. Okay, we are looking at petition SP 4124 at 113, or sometimes known as 115 East Kirkwood Avenue. You can see the little blue box here indicating the parking lot that is just west of the downtown CVS on Kirkwood. The property is just over a quarter acre, 0.27 acres. The current zoning is mixed-use downtown Courthouse Square overlay. Comprehensive plan designation, of course, is downtown. The existing land use is a surface parking lot that has been the use for a long time, and the proposed land use is for having dwelling, multifamily, condominium, residential uses, restaurant space, and office space. So the request tonight is for major site plan approval for one 5-story mixed-use building in the Courthouse Square overlay in the mixed-use downtown Courthouse Square zoning district. The project proposes to use the affordable housing and sustainable development incentives. So as you know, the UDO requires major site plan approval for a number of petitions, and then some petitions are able to be seen here at Plan Commission through department approval if they have unusual size, complexity, or maybe creating potential significant unanticipated impacts on the city of or surrounding neighborhoods. So you may recall that some of you have seen this petition, a similar petition before in 2018. That petition expired, and so a second petition was filed in 2022, and that has been consistently on your agenda since it was seen and tabled. So this is the resolution of that kind of chain of petitions. And has gone to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a height variance for the currently proposed height, and is now here for site plan approval. So the request is, as I said, for a 5-story building. It's 70.5 feet tall. So in the Courthouse Square overlay, the height maximum is 3 stories or 40 feet. And then the petitioner will be utilizing, again, as I said, both types of incentives in order to gain 2 additional stories for a 5-story building. But that would not allow the 70.5 feet in height. So they went to the Board of Zoning Appeals and requested that height maximum, and that variance was approved. The building would contain 14 condominiums for residential use on floors 3 through 5, with roughly 13,000 square feet of restaurant space on both floors 1 and half of floor 2. And the back of floor 2 would have about 6,200 square feet of office space. The petitioner is also proposing to dig out a basement for 26 underground parking spaces. So here is kind of another view of the building, and you can see, as you'll recall, there's an alley along the west side, which you can see here, and there's an alley along the north side as well, and vehicular access to the basement parking would come off of the north side of the property. So as I mentioned before, this is kind of just the layout of the building. Because this is downtown, as so many of our projects in the downtown are, the entire site is used for permeable. So 100% is allowed here, as it is in most of the downtown, only getting down to 75% in the downtown as the most you can cover, excuse me. So this is a view again of the west side of the building. Here, oh, am I saying that right? Yeah, the west side of the building and the north side of the building. So again, coming from the alley, you can see there's 2 vehicular access doors. So the large one here goes to the basement, and then the small one and the small one here on the west side would allow for some drop-off refuse uses to occur in the back of the first floor. So the east side here, you can see it here on the drawing, but you won't be able to see most of it in real life because there is the CVS building located there. So here is a view with the blocking of the CVS building next to the building. Okay, so briefly with this view, I want to talk about the downtown character overlay design requirements. You can read more about them in the staff report, but just a couple to mention. The required pedestrian entrance, which there is obviously located here along Kirkwood. We will work with the petitioner, and I emailed with them today to update that entrance in order to meet our design requirements particular to this overlay. So one of those is that it needs to be recessed, and then there have to be items that kind of designate that as the main pedestrian entrance, such as like benches or lighting, address. It could be a water fountain. There are a lot of choices. So we will work together to update that, and that has been listed as a condition of approval. And then I added as a condition to speak with I'll speak with the architect about, you may recall that our requirements for belt coursing is vertical and horizontal in this district. So just possibly looking at a couple of these facades to see if we could get some kind of contrasting colors to have those be more visible. So that's been added as a condition as well. And so again, I mentioned that the height maximum with both incentives is actually 64 feet, but the variance allows for 70.5. One of the things there, is obviously having 2 floors of non-residential. Those will have higher ceilings, and then the petitioner can speak to the need for additional height as well. So this is a little drawing here of the underground garage. So they are proposing 26 parking spaces. 24 are required because this is in the downtown. As you know, we don't have many parking minimums in the UDO, but in the downtown zoning districts we do. And so they are meeting their parking requirement. And so again, this is accessed off the north alley. A couple of images that they submitted that I think is helpful to see side by side. So kitchen, almost entirely kitchen restaurant space on the first floor with, again, that kind of refuse area in the back, and then the ramp down to the basement parking. Second floor with restaurant area in the front. So this is a 2-story restaurant. It's one space, and it won't be leased. It's going to be condoized. So it'll be owned by the user, with office spaces in the back that, again, are also planned to be condoed. So here are the units. You can see the breakdowns on the right. Again, these are in your packet if you want to look at the details, and then broken down by unit on the left. So the petitioner, again, is requesting to utilize the incentives in the UDO. They are requesting to do payment in lieu option for Tier 1. So the petitioner would contribute $20,000 each for 15% of the total bedrooms proposed for the site, which is 33 bedrooms for a total of $99,000. And then obviously that number would be adjusted up or down if the bed count were to change for some reason between now and permitting. And the proposal is also seeking sustainable development bonus incentives, proposing to achieve the requirements of LEED certification at a silver level. So you can see here just clips from the UDO, the payment in lieu, discussing that option, as well as that the LEED silver is one of the option 2 options. And so this is what allows them to stack those, the sustainable development bonus. So projects that are eligible for increased primary structure height for affordable housing and sustainable development shall be eligible for 1 additional floor, not to exceed 12 feet. So that's on top of the 1 floor that they achieved with their affordable housing incentives. One thing I wanted to mention is that the building directly to the east is historic. Where the CVS is located, and so the code has requirements for projects abutting historic buildings. We had previously worked with the petitioner on this in their last iteration, and so they carried that forward. So that building is listed as notable, and as a result, the first module of this building can't be more than 1 story or 14 feet taller than that building, so you can see some recessing here with additional recessing on the 5th floor to try not to overpower that building on the street side. So we the department found that the petition is compliant with the UDO requirements with the listed conditions of approval. The variances that were received, I forgot to mention that there was a variance related to the amount of window coverage on the first floor that was previously issued that is carrying over to this building, and with utilization of the incentives. The Planning and Transportation Department recommends that the Plan Commission approve the use of both incentives and adopt the proposed findings to approve SP 4124 with the following conditions. The first two related to the incentives, proof of silver level certification shall be submitted prior to recommendation of issuance of final occupancy. Payment in lieu contribution shall be submitted prior to recommendation of issuance of final occupancy. The third, indicating that the petitioner shall submit proof of solar-ready design compliance with their application for a building permit. That's something we added to the code a number of years ago, that all new structures have to meet solar-ready design. And so that isn't always something that we have at this stage, but we will receive that with the building permit application. And then the requirement for photometric plan, again, will come probably with the building permit application, but definitely by the application for the site development permit, which is kind of our replacement for our portions of the grading permit. And then 3 items just to be updated on the plan. The pedestrian entrance, which I already mentioned, the belt coursing, which I mentioned as well, and then just making sure that that bike parking is compliant. And I can answer any questions.
Thanks. Commissioner Cochran.
Yeah, I need to recuse myself from this petition as I might have a financial interest, so.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Is there a representative of the petitioner who would like to continue with the presentation tonight?
Wait for Jackie here. Good evening. Randy Lloyd with the petitioners. I think last time I was here, Lincoln was president. The old Uptown Cafe was a stagecoach stop, and I think we had a passionate discussion about how many horse hitches we need to have on Kirkwood. But I'm glad to be back with this project, and in a roundabout way, I think it's improved, and happy to report that I think we've come a long way, and I think we've been able to add some things to this project that we didn't have before that I think will really enhance the project and particularly, I think, enhance the Kirkwood scene along Bloomington. And a lot of that goes to the Cassidy's having a new restaurant bar concept, which Galen's going to talk about a bit later, added to this project. I'd like to acknowledge quickly, I've got with me Christine Bartlett with Ferguson Law. I got a couple of my partners, Kevin Tiley and Gary Scott here. And Ben Kunkel, the architect, should be online here, so if there's any questions related to that. I think this takes a bit, so we'll continue. But I think Jackie kind of summed it up well, that I've got a little brief presentation I'd like to provide. But it's we're excited and committed to providing owner-occupied housing to downtown Bloomington. I think many of you know I've been at this for quite a few years, and I see it's up. I think if you can do it to the slide and go to the next one. Up one right before it, Jackie, if you don't mind. So again, just to highlight, we actually could have 27 lower-level spots, but this is kind of just a quick summary. We got the office space, the 14 residential condos. I think I just would like to add that on the second floor in the back area, it could also have 2 potential residential condominiums if the office space is not something that is attractive given the type of building. But we have right now the 27 lower, it would be 26 with some other infrastructure we might have to put in. But it's a 5-story with step back at the 4th and 5th floor, as Jackie mentioned, and right now we're at about a $16.5 million investment. As Jackie mentioned, we received our BZA variances. Next slide. For those of you who are around, this is the new proposal, and that was kind of the previous proposal of it. Next slide, Jackie. This kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like, and I'm going to show you some different colored bricks. We're going to do some mock-ups of brick to kind of get a sense of what kind of the colors that we might want to use, but this is one variation or shade, but I think Ben's done an excellent job of sort of showing what that might look like. From the book corner on over is all of the proposed uptown concept space, and then the second floor we see all the glass with the outdoor balcony is what would be their proposed bar area. And as Jackie mentioned, that is a condominium. The Cassidys will own this space. So proud to have them as kind of a partner in this project. And then the condominium entry will be closer to the CVS space. And I might note, Gary and I both, and Kevin, have our offices up here on the third floor of the CVS building, so we are, we're committed to making sure we do right by the building and the structure. Next slide. This just kind of shows some brick variations that we might have, just so you can kind of get a sense of that. Next one, Jackie. This is kind of a different perspective. Coming up Kirkwood, just to give you an idea of the massing. And if this video will play, Ben did this great little video of just kind of a 360 degree, so I think it's worth showing you just to kind of get a sense of what this looks like in some animated fashion. So it's a little slow because it's a lot, but maybe you can get a sense of it. You can note the two big outdoor balconies. Those are two condominiums. We want to do big outdoor porches for most of the units, so some of them have the side units, some have the front. A lot of glass for a lot of light. Then as we come around to the east-west alley, you will see sort of we have both the garage access as well as some service doors. Right there is you can kind of see the far door is the garage entry off of Washington. Again, there's some outdoor balconies there as well. On this side here, and then we come around to the CVS side or our office side. And you can kind of get a sense of the massing there. As Jackie mentioned, it is lot line to lot line. We're using all the lot. We previously had a plan in place with Duke Energy, but some time has passed, so they're reevaluating. And our goal is to actually try to bury most of the stuff in the alley, including the power lines and the other telecommunications and cable infrastructure and fiber, so that we can actually have a really good, nice pedestrian access on the alleys. And so there's a lot of moving parts related to that, and admittedly, Duke is a little busy right now, particularly as it relates to hurricane relief. So we're hoping that we'll have a revised plan here pretty soon. But that's kind of the massing of it. I think Jackie showed you some of the floor plans, but Jackie, if you want to quickly kind of go through the next slides. You saw this previously. This is kind of how the ramp will come down off of the back alley into this. So we're digging down into the lower level. Interestingly, we've done borings and what have you, and previously there had been some buildings on the site, but for the most part, we think we're going to miss stone. A little bit of kind of fill from previous buildings on the front side. And some of you might remember that People's State Bank used to have, they probably had one of the first drive-throughs in Bloomington, if not the first drive-through. And running the full length of the lot is, they had their like teller stand at the very, very back of the lot. And what most people don't know, but there's a big giant tunnel that runs from front to the back underground that contains all of the pneumatic tubes that they had that used to go into the first floor lobby of the People's State Bank. And that is still there. And it's a big galvanized pipe that you can actually walk in. So we at least know they've dug there before, so it's kind of a little fun history there related to that. But One of the things that we do know in working with our brokers on condominium sales is that parking is essential and critical to doing these kinds of sales, and particularly at I think the price point that we're at. And so this plan allows us, both with the lower level, the addition of the Uptown concept as partners, and then maintaining the number of units that we needed, kind of works in a way that makes this project economically feasible. So, but it'll give you just some concept of how the parking would work. And that will be, we'll also have some electric charging stations in the basement related for this, so that anybody that may have EV vehicles and what have you will have some bike storage, and there's some storage also on the second floor as well. Next slide, Jackie. And this is just sort of, again, Jackie showed some of these, but maybe the next slide, Jackie. Next one, you can kind of see the restaurant spaces, and then these are some of the condominium units. And then I just kind of want to get a sense of, these are not apartments. They are condominiums. They're intended for owner occupancy, and you can kind of get a sense of the square footage here of what we're doing. This is on the third floor. Anything from 1378 all the way up to 2523 square feet. Next slide, Jackie, thank you. You can see on some of these, particularly the front units, we get a little larger. And then on the fifth floor, same thing. So these are sizable units, and we think this is what the market is looking for. And we're finally happy to come before you and present this project for approval. With that, I'm going to invite Galen to come up, Galen Cassidy, just to talk a little bit about their role in this project, and then feel free to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you. So Galen Cassidy with Uptown Cafe, and I do want to make clear that this would be an additional concept. Uptown Cafe is going to stay where it's at, but after nearly 50 years with the Uptown business, my father and I are ready to do something more, and we're excited about that opportunity because this is the first time in my father's whole career of being in the restaurant industry that we do have an opportunity to own a space. And Randy and the partners could have easily gone to offer this to another big chain to come into Kirkwood, like we've seen happen closer to the Sample Gates a lot. And nothing wrong with national chains, but I think the independent restaurant community really leads itself to showcase what this community is about. And so we're excited about that opportunity. We're excited to bring more jobs with that, and we're estimating about another 100 jobs. The Uptown Cafe currently supports that right now, and this would be a similar size. As Randy described, we would be on most of the ground floor and a good chunk of that second floor. Most of the seating in our concept would be on the ground floor with a nice main bar on the second floor that would be more of a lounge type bar. Unlike most bars you've seen here, this concept is shooting to be an adult restaurant and bar, not another sports bar that we have many of in town. So we're excited to bring that to the community and to, again, like I said, bring more jobs as well. I think a big part of what we need to do and focus on in planning is attracting people to live here, to visit. To help our local economy. And I think, my father and I are really excited about what we can do with this space, own this space, and bring it to this project. So happy to be here. I'll keep it brief, but if you have any questions for me, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Galen. With that said, this is the project we're presenting. I wanted to thank Jackie and David and the mayor for helping us in supporting this project. As I said, it's had a few iterations, but we're glad to be back with what we have here, and I'd really like to ask for your support to move this project forward. And with that, we'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners, either for the petitioner or for staff? Oh, did you say? Oh. Go ahead, Tron.
I just wanted to comment about the packet itself. I think maybe on the newest edition, the clear vision kind of exported funky. So just wanted to make that comment.
Yes, Christine pointed out the petitioner statement looks like Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not intentional. That was not mine.
No, I know. That's just so maybe we can get a new one up. Absolutely. So I think you laid out your vision.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Kinsey.
Yeah, a couple questions. One is about the entryway on Kirkwood, and I know there might be some adjustments to that from what we saw, but this is an important, that's a major corridor, and we've long lived with the dark, dreary parking lot. So I really want to make sure we know what we're getting in this entryway. So can you talk a little bit more about?
I think the only thing that we're lacking is that we're showing is like we've got a separate entrance for the restaurant, and it is recessed, and they're showing some outdoor seating at that level in some of that. So basically there, and then actually the other, even the condo entry, is recessed a little back from the CVS. Ben, if you're online, do you want to talk a little bit about this? I think what Jackie's getting at, there's things like some planters and some other kind of more amenities that we need to show. And if Ben Kunkel, you here? Is Ben here? Yeah. Ben, you want to comment?
Yeah, hi. Sure. Yeah, I think there's a little more work that needs to be done. We understand that as far as trying to incorporate some of those elements, and I think part of that is working through a little bit of the detail with the restaurant space on the first floor. But yes, we can meet the requirements with the recessed entry and kind of place marking, if you will, of those entrances, so everybody is clear on which is the restaurant entrance and which is the condo entrance, and then having some of those, I'll call them soft elements, like the benches or maybe a water feature, those kind of things as well. We'll still work through the details with everybody on that.
I guess, Jillian, I think we're really close as it is. I think it's just some nuance as far as what we might add as far as amenities and what have you.
Will it all be the same?
No, it's broken out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's like that limestone, I call it the monolith, that sets back, and then the other one pops out a little more, but it even sets back. It's recessed from the CVS building even.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then I guess I had another question related to something, Jackie, that you mentioned about the course belting. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think I've heard that terminology before, but I get it, I think. So that will apply to the sides, to essentially the west side, the north side, and perhaps the east side of the building? Is that
so basically, you have heard it, but you probably just blocked it from your brain because it's confusing and strange. So belt coursing is required in the courthouse square and in the downtown core character overlays. So the idea is that, like in the historic buildings, the floors are often like visually split, right? With with either a stone that's different or a different color or something like that, and that's very common. So this is in the courthouse square overlay, it's on the very edge, right? So it's not, being built on the square where those traditional buildings are. But yes, it's required on all four sides. And so they have some, you can kind of see it in the drawing that he has done some vertical and horizontal breaking up of kind of those big kind of wall spaces. But I do think we probably need a little more than that to kind of meet this requirement. We do appreciate the breaking up that architects mostly do in the downtown, but in these particular areas, it's important to make sure that there, is actually a separation. They've done a good job putting in the sills on the windows that are required, but again, the regulations are kind of written more for the buildings on the square, but they do carry over to this area because it's in that overlay and is kind of the edge of holding that design.
Okay. And will that be written into the next, how will that be assured?
Oh, when we do so I will work with the architect, who was the gentleman you just heard from, and when they apply for their building permit, we will review that during that design.
Okay, thank you. Great. And then just one last little question. The only way to access the second floor restaurant is you have to go into the restaurant to access the separate building?
That is correct, though we do, I think as it is designed on the second floor, share an emergency and access to the stairwell there.
Okay.
So there is an emergency exit that would allow you to get to the stairwell that is actually part of the condominium project. That's the only way, but otherwise people would not be coming in. So the Cassidys will have kind of, right now as it's designed on the first floor, there's kind of a large atrium when you come in with a big open stairwell that goes up to the bar as well as an elevator access.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Though if I had a condominium, I might like a private access to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Sussberg.
While we're talking about the appearance of it, I'm kind of curious about the design choice of that big white divider in the middle. Because especially when you were doing that circle around view, it just seems really, really, it doesn't seem to match the rest of the building. Like the side there, like the white on the side seems to stair step down, and this just seems like a big piece of concrete right in the middle, and it just kind of looks awkward. So is there a reason that you chose that?
I think originally it was, these are limestone features. It's all limestone material. The idea was to add just sort of part of the requirement of breaking up sort of I think the way the facade works, rather than having one continuous building. It allowed us to kind of break up the building in a way. I think I see, like, there could be potential art on it or something, but I don't think it's as big and obtrusive as you might think it is. It just allows us to kind of break up the facade in a way with an architectural element that kind of end caps it at the end there by the alley with limestone. I don't think most people will notice that it's a limestone wall of sorts, but that's just kind of an architectural feature just to break it up.
You can color me skeptical and encourage you to do something on the top that's not just a straight 90-degree angle there, because it comes out so much farther, at least on the picture, it comes out so much farther than, say, the balcony up at the top, and so it feels really abrupt. So it just seems like it would be nicer if it stair-stepped, or if it curved, or if it did anything to kind of not have such a 90-degree drop there. It just feels a little awkward. So
we'll happy to take that into consideration, and I think for most people who are walking along the street, you're not going to see it at the fourth and fifth floor as much as maybe you're seeing it here. But it is, like I said, it's just part of the design element. I think it captures sort of the essence of kind of a lot of the limestone that we use in our own community, and it's just kind of a feature. So I'll color you skeptical.
So color me skeptical, but it's just an art kind of design piece.
It is. It's just to break up the elements between the overall street facade in a way.
Yeah. Okay. My second question has to do with the alleys and deliveries, especially since it's a restaurant. We have so many issues with delivery trucks down there, and I have heard that alley is really narrow. So are those, what's the delivery truck plan here, and do we expect that those alleys are wide enough to really?
It is. It is not the alley is the alley size that most alleys are, as far as I'm aware of. And as I said, our office is on the third floor of the CVS, and I watch it every day, how the square gets served. And some people, there are trucks that back up into the alley. There are trucks that just park on the street. The trash trucks come up the alley and pick up the trash from both sides of it. So I don't think it's a smaller alley. I think it's a normal size alley. And we're showing sort of on the north-south alley, there is a service entry door a little further towards the back, right there where Jackie's kind of pointing. And then on the east-west alley, there's another entry that would allow for trash to be removed from either location, and also to service the restaurant. But like I said, I've been watching this for years because our offices have been here for years, and there are a lot of really good truck drivers out there that they get in the alley and they unload, but again, some don't. They just park in the street. So I don't see any issues with servicing this space or the spaces on the square or other adjacent areas. We see it all the time now.
I know. I mean, I guess I would say that there's been a lot of conversation in this town about deliveries around the square and how problematic it is. And I've heard a lot of comments about how difficult it is for those delivery trucks to get down those alleys and how close they come to those buildings. So we're just putting another building like really, really on that alley. So Jackie, do you have any comments on that aspect?
I mean, I think the alley is what it is, right? It's a 12-foot wide alley. If they're taking that on, taking delivery in that space, something we have talked to or heard from other restaurant owners is, there may be options to prioritize smaller vehicles for some of those things that they can control. Other things they won't be able to control. If they think they can take deliveries here, we do see deliveries done in other alleys. Of course, we also all see the trucks park on the street. They're in a bit of a unique situation here because they obviously take delivery at the other location. And so will they be taking separate delivery? Will it be joint? There may be something for them to look at, combining those things as well.
I can just add that Malibu gets serviced in this alley right now. So, every week during the morning, you can go out and see that a semi-trailer can back into that alley. And yes, we need to build a building here, but right now it already goes up to, as narrow as that alley goes. So the building is not going to make it more narrow than it already is, and it's already being serviced that way. And we would receive deliveries the same way. Now, talking to truck drivers about when they deliver and how they deliver, that's another conversation that needs to happen because it is bad around this city, but it can be done in Malibu. I'm sure they would tell you that they receive deliveries that way.
Thank you, Kevin.
Go ahead, continue.
I think my last one is just what price do you expect these units to go for?
Right now, we're, again, depending on some conversations with Duke, we're anywhere from probably the 600 range to $1.5 million. And that's not set in stone, but that's kind of where we're at. And I will add, there is just nothing cheap about building this in the downtown space, so.
Commissioner Seaborn.
Yeah, just following up on the alleys. I know there's been, just making sure I'm looking at the plans right, so that of course, the garage ramps off the east-west alley. There's looked like an overhead service store. So basically, that's where the trash and everything would be interior to the building and just be set out.
Just carted out, yes.
And then, so that will all be interior except for when the trash is picked up. And then there's another service, I'm guessing another overhead service store.
Yes, there is.
Off the east or north-south alley?
North-south alley, yes.
And will that be more for like the deliveries or?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the drive entry for the garage is recessed in a little bit, to just give you a little room.
Make it a little easier to get in and out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And so really the doors for residents and really are the Kirkwood frontages?
They are, that's it. Yeah. Okay. And it's actually worth noting, Andrew, that we have for the condominiums have an interior trash chute, so it goes right down into the dumpsters, and
great.
And then the Cassidys will have their own location adjacent to that as well for recyclables and trash, and it's just moving it all out.
That's great, and it's all overhead doors, so nothing's like swinging out into the
That's
alley.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome.
All overhead doors.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. We will go to public comment then on SP 41-24. If you're here in the chambers and you'd like to make comments, step right up to the podium, state your name for the record, and you can speak for up to 5 minutes. If you're joining us online, just look for the reactions button and then click the raise hand button, or send a chat message to Jackie Scanlon, and we'll recognize you when it's your turn to speak.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. This is Chris Rimsey from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, endorsing the petitioner here, and our hats off to Mr. Lloyd for his patience. 2018, that's a long time if you've been following this long and winding alleyway of a story. As we can see from the presentation, both from staff and from Mr. Lloyd, it's an impressive site. Right now is a dreary parking lot, and it has what we want as a community, which is compact urban design. It's a mixed use, and that use, as far as for residential, are condos. And if you recall from the spring updated ROI housing study, condos was a main thing that we are sort of lacking in this community on housing-wise. And then if you look at the commercial aspect of it, having Cassidy Hospitality there, who's an anchor downtown with Uptown, I think this is one of these things that we should get excited for and that we should support with a positive recommendation. And then we hear about the possible, that alleyway cleanup. If you look at that, it could use some bearing of wires. Just that potential really would increase the beautification of that Kirkwood corridor that we all so treasure in this community. So I thank you for your time and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening. I'm Randy Cassidy, and a longtime downtown supporter. And as we all know, I would like to make one little correction. It wasn't People's State Bank, it was Workingman's Federal. That's right. So on that, thank you, this has been an empty parking lot for over 50 years. And to see the renovation of something in the downtown that is going to bring us individuals living downtown, and to take care of one of those missing teeth in our block as we come from our community of downtown in the courthouse through the campus. It just helps complete things, and it gives a vibrancy of having people living there. And if we can do more to bring people downtown, to fill these things in, the architectural aspect, they've looked at it, they've seen what, and then to have a local company that provides quality hospitality in this area to also take the ownership of that. I'd like to suggest, as you guys look at it, it fills in a piece from a lot of years. So I would appreciate if you'd support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Any online commenters? Jackie?
Nobody online.
All right, last call for public comment. All right, we are back to the commission then for any final comment or a motion.
I'll motion to approve SP 41-24, Clear Path Services for a major site plan review for the one 5-story mixed-use building in the Courthouse Square overlay, and with the 5 conditions indicated in the packet. I seconded.
So,
I don't know if I need to,
Yeah,
one other
you wanna
thing. I
say
do
that
want to
we are
say that I want to
approving-
approve the use of the sustainable development and affordable housing incentives, and then adopt the proposed findings and approve
Great,
with the
thank you.
following conditions. Sorry.
And I
Sec-
seconded.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Any final discussion?
Yeah, I was here when I saw the development the first go around, and I think we did an extension on it as well, and I really hope to see this vision come to fruition, and it's nice to kind of potentially utilize that. Also, I guess my final kind of comment is it's prime area, so, it's going to be really tough to kind of provide affordable condos and things, and this goes not to this petition, but to planning with the pay in lieu, I'm really curious if we're still meeting our needs for affordability. I totally understand the direction and you're taking your options, but just overall, I really would be curious if planning has any other considerations of how to establish that. I kind of will probably have that comment every time I see someone use the payment in lieu option versus adding it in the development itself. So thank you.
I was going to say thank you for the project. I have 3 pet peeves about Kirkwood, and number 1 is parking on Kirkwood. I don't like parking lots, so anything replacing a parking lot is phenomenal, and this is going to be a great addition to the downtown, so I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Commissioner Stossberg?
I think that we have a really big issue when our payment in lieu program nets $100,000 and allows, if I'm counting right, 4 additional units priced at a minimum of $600,000 apiece. I think that there's a real, to Tron's point, gap, you could say, in that piece of, and it's not just the UDO, it's actually a hand manual that they determine that payment in lieu number every year. So I don't have any objection to this project per se, but I think that the city needs to do some work on right-sizing some of that in terms of if people get an affordability incentive, then there needs to actually be some ability to create affordability somewhere. And this doesn't create affordability, and honestly, $100,000 in the Affordable Housing Fund doesn't go very far in creating affordability either. So, thanks.
I don't want to take your joy away. It's been a long time coming, and you're not going to solve the affordability problem. We are happy that you're following all the rules of the UDO and doing a great service to the community. Thank you.
I'll just say, obviously this isn't an affordable project per se, but I am just so happy to see a project come forward with a partner for the ground floor retail space. We see so frequently developers just writing off that space, and maybe we'll find somebody to lease it, maybe we won't, and they just build the cost of that into the rest of the units. So to have this kind of partnership, I think is a model. I hope we'll see more of this. Anything else before we call the roll? All right, let's call the roll.
Whistler,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Seaboard,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stossberg.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you very much for your support, and we're looking forward to breaking ground and creating a great new project for Bloomington. So thank you again.
Thank you. Any other final, any announcements before we adjourn? All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. We are adjourned.